Hello friends. Welcome to the DxD Tales. How are you all? So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Issei awakened Gojo's 6 eyes and Sukuna's cursed techniques. Also be sure to subscribe and like this video. Now let's begin. Chapter 1. Awakening Eyes. The headache started like all the others, a subtle throb behind Issei hideout. U's eyes that he might have dismissed as nothing more than the aftermath of too little sleep. 3 nights of strange dreams had left him perpetually exhausted, with phantom sensations lingering at the edges of his consciousness. But this pain felt different somehow, sharper and more focused, as if someone had driven a thin silver needle directly through his pupils. "You okay, man? You look like complete garbage," Matsuda said, clapping a hand against Issei's shoulder hard enough to make him wince. "Don't tell me you were up all night with that new collection I lent you." Issei managed a weak smile. The fluorescent lights of the classroom suddenly too bright. "Just didn't sleep well. Weird dreams. About girls, I hope," Motohama chimed in, adjusting his glasses with practiced precision. "Though with your luck, probably nightmares about being rejected again." The familiar banter continued around him, but Issei found himself unable to focus on their words. The classroom seemed to pulse with each throb of pain, the edges of his vision wavering like heat rising from summer pavement. For a moment, just the briefest flicker of perception, he thought he saw something dark and viscous curling around Aika Kiryu as she walked past their desks, like smoke given weight and malevolence. "Hyodo-kun," the teacher's voice cut through his distraction. "The answer to question 14, please." Issei blinked, the strange visual distortion gone as suddenly as it had appeared. He stared blankly at the open textbook before him, the numbers and equations swimming meaninglessly across the page. "I don't know, sensei." The teacher's disapproving frown matched the snickers from his classmates. "Perhaps you should try staying awake in my class if you want to pass this year." The rest of the morning passed in a blur of discomfort and confusion. Twice more, Issei caught glimpses of strange phenomena, threads of luminous blue energy trailing from the fingertips of a girl in Class 2B. And a momentary halo of crimson light surrounding the stern disciplinary committee president. Each vision lasted only seconds before reality reasserted itself, leaving him questioning his sanity. By lunchtime, the pain had intensified to the point where food held no appeal. Issei found himself on the school roof, leaning against the chain-link fence and pressing his forehead against the cool metal. The spring breeze offered momentary relief, carrying the scent of cherry blossoms from the trees that lined Kuo Academy's perimeter. "This isn't normal," he muttered to himself, closing his eyes against the too bright sunlight. "I should probably see a doctor. Or perhaps you're simply awakening to something beyond normal perception." The unfamiliar female voice startled him, eyes flying open to find a petite girl with platinum white hair standing several meters away. Tuju Sharon, a first-year whose quiet demeanor and expressionless face had earned her both admiration and wariness from the student body. Issei had never spoken to her before, and her presence on the normally deserted rooftop surprised him almost as much as her cryptic words. "What did you say?" Golden Eyes tooted him with unnerving intensity before she turned away. "Nothing important. You should be careful though, your energy is fluctuating." Before Issei could question her further, she had disappeared through the rooftop door, leaving him with only the whisper of the wind and an inexplicable chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. The encounter with Tuju lingered in his thoughts throughout his afternoon classes, momentarily distracting him from the persistent headache. By the final bell, however, the pain had receded to a manageable level, and Issei found himself almost believing he had imagined the entire episode. That fragile normality shattered entirely on his walk home. "Excuse me, Hyodo-kun." Issei turned to find a girl with long black hair and violet eyes watching him with apparent nervousness. Her Kuo Academy uniform was impeccably pressed, but he couldn't recall ever seeing her at school before. "Yes, my name is Amano Yuma," she said, fingers fidgeting with the strap of her school bag. "I've noticed you walking this way before, and I was wondering if you might want to go out with me this Sunday." The request was so unexpected that Issei temporarily forgot his physical discomfort. His notorious bad luck with women had been a constant source of mockery from his friends, and now a beautiful girl was asking him on a date. It seemed too good to be true. It was. "I really He stammered, a flush creeping up his neck. You want to go out with me? She nodded, a smile blooming across her face that didn't quite reach her eyes. If you're not busy, we could meet at the shopping district at noon. Something about her smile triggered another flash of pain behind his eyes, sharper than before. For an instant, so brief he might have dizzy. It is imagination. Issei thought he saw something else superimposed over the schoolgirl's form. A taller woman with crueler features and massive black wings extending from her back, surrounded by a sickly purple aura that writhed like living shadow. Issei blinked hard, and the vision vanished, leaving only the hopeful expression of Amano Yuma waiting for his answer. Sure, he heard himself say, ignoring the warning pulse of pain. Sunday sounds great. Her smile widened. Perfect. I'll see you then, Issei-kun. As she walked away, Issei couldn't shake the unsettling sensation that nothing significant had just been set in motion, some wheel of fate beginning to turn in a direction that would alter the course of his existence. The thought came with such clarity and conviction that he stopped walking entirely, standing motionless on the sidewalk until the girl had disappeared around a corner. What the hell is happening to me? He whispered to the empty street. That night, he dreams came with unprecedented intensity. Issei found himself standing in an endless void where reality seemed to have different properties, where space itself appeared as visible layers that he could perceive and potentially manipulate. Within this strange dimension, a voice addressed him, ancient and powerful, resonating not with sound but with the very fabric of his consciousness. Interesting vessel, it purred. The words tasting of blood and smoke. Not what I expected, but perhaps more suitable than it first appears. Issei tried to speak, to demand answers from the presence that invaded his dreams, but found himself incapable of forming words in this formless space. You sense it already, don't you? The voice continued, tinged with amusement. The convergence of powers that should never coexist. The dragon sleeping in your left arm. The eyes awakening to see beyond illusion. And me, a fragment of something that once ruled through absolute strength. In the dream, Issei felt something shift within him, a pressure building behind his eyes and within his chest, as if three distinct forces were struggling for dominance within a vessel too small to contain them all. Soon, the voice promised as the dream began to dissolve. Soon your eyes will truly open, and nothing will ever appear the same again. Issei awoke gasping, sheets damp with sweat despite the cool spring night. The bedroom was dark save for the red glow of his alarm clock, but as his racing heart began to slow, he realized with growing horror that he could still hear the voice from his dream, faint but unmistakable, whispering at the very edge of his awareness. Remember, it murmured, pride means nothing without absolute strength. Sunday arrived with deceptive normalcy. The headaches had subsided, leaving behind only occasional moments of visual distortion that Issei had almost convinced himself were caused by stress or lack of sleep. The voice from his dreams remained silent during his waking hours, and even the memory of its words had begun to fade like morning mist under sunlight. His date with Yuma proceeded with surprising smoothness, window shopping at the mall, sharing crepes at a small cafe, visiting a nearby park as afternoon faded toward evening. Throughout the day, Issei found himself actually enjoying her company, though something about her smile still occasionally triggered an inexplicable sense of unease. I've had a really nice time today, Issei-kun, Yuma said as they stood beside the fountain in the park's central plaza, the setting sun casting long shadows across the nearly deserted pathways. Would you do something for me? To commemorate our first date? Of course, Issei replied, heart hammering with anticipation. Would she ask for a kiss? A promise of a second date? Her smile widened, beautiful and terrible all at once. Would you die for me? The transformation happened in an instant, the sweet schoolgirl persona evaporating like morning dew to reveal something inhuman beneath. Her body elongated, clothing replaced by straps of black leather that barely covered mature curves. Massive black feathered wings erupted from her back, spanning several meters in either direction. Most disturbing of all were her eyes, which had shifted from violet to a pitiless crimson that held no trace of humanity. My name is Rainer, she announced, hovering above the ground as her wings beat slowly against the evening air. And it's nothing personal, Issei-kun. You just have something dangerous inside you that my superiors want eliminated before it becomes a problem. The pain behind Issei's eyes exploded with blinding intensity, dropping him to his knees as Raynor summoned a spear of crackling light energy. Through the haze of agony, he saw not just the physical spear but the very construction of the energy itself, complex patterns of power woven into a deadly lattice designed to pierce flesh and soul alike. How disappointing, Raynor sighed. I was hoping you might at least try to run. It's more fun when they run. She hurled the light spear with casual precision, aiming directly for Issei's heart. In that moment of mortal danger, something fundamental shifted within him, a convergence of three distinct powers that had been building toward critical mass since the first headache days ago. Time seemed to slow as the spear approached, giving Issei an eternity to perceive every facet of the energy construct hurtling toward him. He could see weaknesses in its composition, points where the power had been imperfectly channeled. More than that, he could see everything with unprecedented clarity, the individual particles of dust suspended in the air, the precise mathematical curvature of the fountain's arc of water, the complex weave of energy that comprised Raynor's wings. What? Raynor's expression shifted from sadistic pleasure to confusion as the light spear stopped a centimeter from Issei's chest, hanging motionless in the air as if it had struck an invisible barrier. Issei rose slowly to his feet, the pain behind his eyes transforming into something else entirely, a cold, crystalline clarity that expanded his perception beyond anything humanly possible. His vision had changed fundamentally, revealing layers of reality previously invisible, swirling patterns of energy, structural weaknesses in physical matter, and the precise flows of power that animated Raynor's supernatural form. Your eyes, she hissed, genuine fear creeping into her voice. What are you? Issei had no answer for her. He was overwhelmed by the sudden influx of sensory information, by the discovery that he could see the very composition of reality itself. The light spear still hung motionless before him, suspended by he somehow instinctively recognized as his own ability to manipulate infinity, to create a space where an infinite number of calculations prevented anything from reaching him. This wasn't in the briefing, Raynor snarled. Summoning another, larger spear. Those aren't dragon eyes. She hurled the second spear with significantly more force than the first, but it too froze upon reaching the invisible boundary surrounding Issei. Her expression contorted with rage and disbelief as she began creating and launching spears in rapid succession, each one joining the others in suspended animation at the edge of Issei's protective field. Impossible, she shrieked, her wings flaring wide in agitation. What kind of sacred gear is this? Issei felt something stirring within his left arm, a sense separate from both the crystalline clarity behind his eyes and the darker, more malevolent energy that had begun to circle through his bloodstream like liquid shadow. A third power, ancient and draconic, awakening in response to the mortal danger. Not just a sacred gear, he found himself saying, the words emerging in a voice that sounded like his own but carried unfamiliar confidence. Something more. Raynor's expression flickered between rage and fear as she launched herself skyward, her wings carrying her 20 meters above the ground. It doesn't matter what you are, she called down. The others will want to know about this development, but you still die tonight. She extended both hands, channeling power into a spear 3 times larger than her previous creations. The light it emitted was almost blinding. But Issei's transformed vision could perceive its structure without discomfort, could see the deadly intent woven into every strand of its construction. As Raynor prepared to throw the massive spear, Issei felt the dark energy in his bloodstream responding to his fear and anger, coalescing around his right hand. Acting on instinct rather than knowledge, he extended his arm toward the fallen angel and simply willed something to happen. The air between them seemed to split along an invisible line, a perfect bisection of reality that extended from Issei's fingertip directly toward Raynor. The fallen angel's expression barely had time to register shock before the technique struck her outstretched arm, cleaving it from her body with surgical precision. There was no resistance, no blood, just the clean separation of matter along a mathematically perfect plane. Raynor's scream echoed across the empty park as her severed arm and the half-formed light spear plummeted to the ground. What? How did you? She choked out, clutching at the perfectly smooth stump with her remaining hand. That's not possible. Issei stared at his own hand in horror and fascination. The technique had emerged without conscious thought, as if some deeply buried knowledge had surfaced in response to threat. It wasn't just that he had attacked her, It was the method, the ca. Sual precision with which reality itself had parted at his command. Dismantle, whispered the dark voice from his dreams, suddenly present in his waking mind. A technique that slices through any thing by cutting along the innate divide between objects at an atomic level. Quite useful for removing troublesome obstacles. Rainer's initial shock had given way to survival instinct. Clutching her ruined shoulder, she beat her wings frantically, gaining altitude as she retreated from the suddenly dangerous human below. The others need to know about this, she hissed, her voice tight with pain and fear. This changes everything. Before Issei could respond, a crimson circle of light materialized on the ground near the fountain, intricate geometric patterns spinning within its circumference. From this circle emerged a young woman with flowing crimson hair and eyes the color of the ocean depths, wearing the familiar uniform of Kuo Academy's high school division. Fallen angel, the newcomer said, her voice calm but carrying unmistakable authority. You have attacked someone under my protection, in territory I oversee. Explain yourself before I reduce you to ashes. Rainer's face contorted with hatred, but the calculated look in her eyes suggested she recognized she was outmatched. Grimoire devil, she spat. Your protection came too late. And what you're protecting isn't what you think it is. Her gaze shifted to Issei. This isn't over, aberration. My superiors will want to know what you are. With a final beat of her massive wings, she vanished into the darkening sky, leaving behind only a few black feathers slowly drifting toward the ground. The red-haired woman, Grimoire, Rainer had called her, turned her attention to Issei, studying him with an expression that mingled curiosity with caution. You're Hyodo Issei from Class 2B, correct? I'm Rias Grimoire, third-year student and president of the Occult Research Club. Issei nodded slowly, still struggling to process what had happened. His vision remained transformed, allowing him to see the complex networks of power flowing through Rias's body, different from Rainer's, more structured and controlled. With a distinctive crimson hue that suggested destructive potential carefully harnessed. You can see it, can't you? Rias asked quietly. The power, the true nature of things. Everything, Issei confirmed, his voice barely above a whisper. I can see everything. Rias approached cautiously, as if concerned about triggering another defensive reaction. The infinity barrier you created, and that cutting technique. Those aren't abilities associated with the power we detected within you. Her brow furrowed slightly. In fact, I've never seen abilities quite like those before, and my F.A. Miley maintains extensive records of supernatural phenomena. I don't understand what's happening to me, Issei admitted, looking down at his hands. The dark energy that had manifested during the confrontation had receded, but he could still feel it circulating beneath his skin, waiting to be called upon again. 3 days ago, I was normal. Then the headache started, and now you've become something unprecedented. Rias completed his thought, something that has attracted the attention of multiple factions, it seems. She gestured to the park around them, and Issei realized a start that a translucent red barrier had enclosed the entire area, visible to his enhanced perception as a complex matrix of interlocking spells. I've established privacy wards to prevent further interruptions, Rias explained. We should talk freely here. What was she? Issei asked, glancing toward the sky where Rainer had disappeared. She called herself a fallen angel. Exactly that, Rias confirmed. A being who once served in heaven but fell from grace. They retain many of their celestial powers but often use them for selfish or destructive purposes. She studied him with renewed intensity. But I'm more interested in what you are, Issei Hyodo. Those eyes of yours, they're not just seeing my power, are they? They're seeing the structure of reality itself. Issei nodded slowly. It's like I can see the mathematical formulas behind everything, space, energy, matter. I can perceive how it all fits together, where the connections are strongest and weakest. The 6 eyes, whispered an unfamiliar voice. Both Issei and Rias turned to find Tuju Sharon standing at the edge of the fountain, her petite form almost ghost-like in the gathering twilight. Issei hadn't heard her approach, hadn't even sensed her presence until she spoke, a remarkable feat given his newly enhanced perception. Sharon, Rias acknowledged with a mixture of surprise and resignation. Hold have known you'd detect the disturbance. The white-haired girl moved closer, her golden eyes fixed on Issei with that same unnerving intensity he'd noticed during their brief rooftop encounter. His energy signature has changed, she observed. 3 distinct patterns now, intertwined but not fully integrated. 3. Rias questioned, her elegant eyebrows rising slightly. Sharon nodded. Dragon, sorcerer, and something, ancient, malevolent. She sniffed the air delicately. Smells like blood and fire. A shiver ran down Issei's spine at her words, remembering the dark voice T had whispered to him during the confrontation with Rainer. Whatever that third presence was, it carried an aura of casual cruelty and overwhelming power that even in fragmentary form felt dangerous beyond measure. We should continue this discussion somewhere more secure, Rias decided, glancing around the park. The fallen angel may return with reinforcements once she recovers from her injury. Her gaze shifted momentarily to Issei's right hand, which had so effortlessly cleaved through supernatural flesh. The old schoolhouse, Sharon suggested. Akeno has strengthened the wards. Rias nodded in agreement before turning back to Issei. Will you come with us? I promise to explain everything I can about what's happening, though I suspect some aspects of your situation may be beyond even my knowledge. Issei hesitated only briefly. His life had irrevocably changed in the space of a few days, culminating in a murder attempt by a supernatural being. Whatever path lay ahead, it was clear he couldn't navigate it alone. I'll come, he agreed. But I want honest answers. Honesty I can promise, Rias replied with a slight smile. Though complete answers may be harder to provide, given the unprecedented nature of your abilities. She extended her hand, a crimson magical circle appearing beneath their feet. Brace yourself. Teleportation feels strange the first time. The sensation that followed was indeed strange. A momentary disorientation as reality seemed to fold around them, compressing infinite distance into a single step. For Issei, whose newly awakened eyes perceive the actual mechanics of the spatial manipulation, it was particularly disorienting. He watched in fascination as Rias's magic temporarily rewrote the fundamental properties of space-time, creating a direct connection between 2 distant points. When the crimson light faded, they stood in an elegantly furnished room with Victorian styling, high ceilings, heavy velvet curtains, antique furniture arranged around a central coffee table. The space exuded an atmosphere of refined mysticism, with occult symbols subtly incorporated into the decor. Welcome to the Occult Research Club, Rias announced, gesturing to their surroundings, or more accurately, the headquarters of my peerage. Peerage? Issei questioned, the unfamiliar term catching his attention. All in due time, Rias assured him, moving to sit behind an ornate wooden desk. First, I believe introductions are in order. As I mentioned, I am Rias Grimoire, daughter of the Grimoire family, one of the remaining 72 pillars of the underworld. Issei's enhanced vision confirmed what his instincts had already suggested. Rias was not human. The power flowing through her body was too structured, too dense to belong to any ordinary mortal. You're a devil, he stated rather than asked. Rias inclined her head slightly in acknowledgement. Indeed, though perhaps not the type of devil human mythology has led you to expect. We've evolved considerably from the simplistic portrayals in religious texts. Before she could elaborate further, the door to the room opened to admit a striking young woman with long black hair tied in a ponytail. Like Rias, she wore the Kuo Academy uniform, though she carried herself with a particular blend of elegance and subtle sensuality. Era, what have we here? The newcomer asked, violet eyes sweeping over Issei with undisguised curiosity. The source of that fascinating power spike, I presume. Akeno, this is Hyodo Issei from Class 2B, Rias introduced. Issei, this is Himehime Akeno, my queen and vice president of the Occult Research Club. Queen, Issei repeated, confusion evident in his voice. Devil terminology, Akeno explained with a small smile. It refers to my role within Rias's peerage, her team, essentially. She moved closer, studying him with heightened interest. But you're not a devil, are you? Despite your encounter with that fallen angel. Something quite different, I think. Issei's enhanced vision revealed Akeno's supernatural nature as well. Power patterns similar to Rias's devil energy but with an additional layer that resembled Rainer's light-based abilities. Though more controlled and integrated with her primary power source. Akeno is half fallen angel, Sharon stated matter-of-factly from where she had perched on the arm of a nearby sofa. Apparently reading Issei's questioning expression, Akino's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. Direct as always, Sharon-chan. She turned back to Issei. It's true, though not info. Our Mash and I typically share upon first meetings. My heritage is complicated. Join the club, Issei muttered, thinking of the 3 distinct powers that had awakened within him. Apparently I've got dragon, sorcerer, and something ancient and malevolent, all competing for space. 3 powers. Akino's eyebrows rose in surprise as she glanced at Rias. No wonder he attracted fallen angel attention. But what exactly are these powers? I recognize dragon energy, likely a sacred gear, but sorcerer. His eyes, Sharon supplied, golden gaze still fixed on Issei. 6 eyes. Very rare, very powerful, sees the true nature of things. 6 eyes. Rias leaned forward, interest sharpening her features. I've heard legends of such an ability in certain human bloodlines, but it's supposed to be exceedingly rare, appearing perhaps once in several centuries, if at all. Issei blinked, momentarily disorienting himself as his enhanced vision registered the action in precise detail, the exact velocity of his eyelids. The microsecond adjustment of focus as his eyes reopened. Is that why everything looks different now? Why I can see energy patterns and the structure of things? Rias nodded slowly. The 6 eyes are said to grant perfect vision of supernatural phenomena, the ability to perceive cursed energy, magical constructs, and even the fundamental composition of reality itself. Combined with certain techniques, they allow for unprecedented control over space, energy, and matter. Like stopping Rainer's light spears without touching them, Issei recalled. The limitless technique, Sharon identified. Infinity between points. Nothing reaches you. And that cutting ability, Akino added thoughtfully. That doesn't sound like any 6 eyes technique I've heard of. Could it be related to the ancient and malevolent 3rd power Sharon sensed? A chill ran through Issei at the mention of that power, recalling the dark voice that had identified the technique as dismantle. Something about that presence felt fundamentally wrong, as if it had never been meant to coexist with human consciousness. I think so, he admitted. When I used it, I heard a voice, the same voice I've been hearing in my dreams since the headaches started. It called the technique dismantle, and said it cuts along the atomic division between objects. Rias and Akino exchanged concerned glances. A sentient power residing within you, separate from both the dragon energy and the 6 eyes, Rias mused. That's concerning. Feels like a curse, Sharon added, wrinkling her nose slightly. Old curse. Strong curse. A curse powerful enough to maintain consciousness across centuries or even millennia, Akino said softly. I've never heard of such a thing outside of sealed legendary monsters. The term triggered something in Issei's memory, a fragment of the dream voice's words, a fragment of something that once ruled through absolute strength. Whatever resided within him considered itself royalty of some kind, a being accustomed to domination and power. It called itself a king, he revealed. Or at least, a fragment of one. The atmosphere in the room shifted subtly, tension radiating from the 3 supernatural beings as they processed this information. 3 unprecedented powers converging in a single human vessel, Rias finally said, breaking the weighted silence. A sacred gear containing a dragon spirit, the legendary 6 eyes, and a fragment of some ancient cursed being that considers itself royalty. She shook her head slightly. The statistical probability of such a convergence is astronomical. It suggests intervention. Akino finished when Rias hesitated. Something or someone arranged this specific combination of powers. The implication hung heavy in the air, that Issei's unique condition wasn't random chance but deliberate design, orchestrated by forces operating on a cosmic scale for purposes yet unknown. Before anyone could pursue this disturbing line of thought, Issei felt a sudden surge of energy from his left arm, accompanied by an unfamiliar voice that resonated directly in his mind rather than his ears. Partner, the voice rumbled. Deep and ancient but lacking the malevolent undertones of the curse fragment. It seems you've awakened to quite the complicated situation. Perhaps it's time I introduced myself as well. A crimson glow emanated from Issei's left hand, gradually intensifying until it illuminated the entire room with pulsing red light. The three devils watched with varying expressions of awe and caution as the glow coalesced into a gauntlet covering Issei's forearm and hand, scaled in appearance, with emerald jewels embedded at strategic points. The boosted gear, Rias breathed, recogni. Qian and something like reverence in her voice. One of the 13 Longinus-class sacred gears, containing the spirit of the Red Dragon Emperor, Didrake. Well met, daughter of Grimoire, the voice acknowledged. Seeming to emanate from the central jewel of the gauntlet. Though the circumstances are unusual, to say the least. In all my centuries of existence, I've never shared a host with powers of this nature. You're Didrake? Issei asked, staring at the materialized gauntlet in fascination. His enhanced vision revealed complex energy structures flowing through the physical manifestation, connecting to his own life force and spiritual essence. I am, the dragon confirmed. One of the two heavenly dragons sealed within sacred gears after the great war between angels, fallen angels, and devils. My power allows the wielder to double their strength every 10 seconds, a capability that has made previous hosts into formidable warriors capable of challenging gods. And now, that power exists alongside the 6 eyes and an unidentified curse fragment, Rias observed. The question is whether these powers will strengthen or interfere with each other, or perhaps something else entirely. An excellent question, Didrake rumbled. Already I can sense the 6 eyes enhancing my ability to transfer power to the host. The precision they grant allows for more efficient energy. Why manipulation than I've experienced with any previous wielder? As for the curse fragment, the dragon's voice darkened slightly. Its energy signature is unfamiliar, yet carries echoes of something I may have encountered long ago. Before my sealing. You recognize it? Issei asked, hope rising that at least one mystery might find resolution. Not precisely, Didrake admitted. More NSE of familiarity without specific recognition. Whatever it is predates even my extensive memory, which spans millennia. That alone suggests considerable age and power. Rias rose from behind her desk, moving to stand directly before Issei. Her expression had shifted from academic curiosity to something more resolute, a decision having been reached during the conversation. Issei Hyodo, she began formally. Under normal circumstances, I would offer you a place in my peerage, an opportunity to be reincarnated as a devil under my protection and guidance. However, she gestured to the gauntlet in his eyes, which he now realized must appear visibly different to others. Your situation is far from normal, and attempting to reincarnate someone with your unique confluence of powers might have unpredictable consequences. What are you proposing instead? Issei asked, sensing the direction of her thoughts. An alliance, Rias stated simply. You clearly need guidance to understand and control these awakened abilities. I can provide resources, knowledge, and protection while you learn to master them. In return, your power could be invaluable in addressing certain challenges my peerage currently faces. Akeno stepped forward to stand beside her king. Rias is being diplomatic. What she means is that we could use someone of your potential strength in the coming conflict with her unwanted fiancé. Akeno, Rias admonished gently, though without genuine anger. But yes, that is one consideration among several. The supernatural world is complex and often dangerous, as you've already discovered. Neither of us can afford to stand alone when allies would benefit us both. Issei considered the offer, acutely aware of how dramatically his life had changed in the span of a single day. He had powers he didn't understand, enemies he hadn't known existed until hours ago, and an ancient cursed fragment whispering in the recesses of his mind. Facing such challenges alone seemed not just daunting but foolish. I accept, he said finally. But I want to understand everything. What these powers are, why they've awakened in me, and how to control them without losing myself in the process. Rias extended her hand, a gesture both formal and welcoming. Then we have an agreement, Issei Hyodo. Welcome to the supernatural world. I suspect your arrival will change more than any of us can currently imagine. As their hands met, Issei felt something shift within the complex energies circulating through his system. Not alignment, precisely, but a tentative equilibrium, as if the three distinct powers had reached a temporary understanding in the face of external challenges. The sensation brought momentary relief from the constant pressure he'd been experiencing since the awakening began. Now, Rias continued, releasing his hand, we should begin addressing the most immediate concerns. First, basic protection. The fallen angels will likely return, possibly with reinforcements. Second, understanding and controlling your abilities before they manifest in unpredictable ways. Third, Sharon added quietly from her position on the sofa, finding out why. The WHITE-haired girl's simple statement carried profound implications. Why had these specific powers awakened in Issei? Why now? And perhaps most importantly, why would someone or something arrange such an unprecedented convergence? Indeed, Rias agreed, though that may be the most challenging question to answer. As if in response to the uncertainty hanging in the air, Issei felt a flicker of that dark, ancient presence stirring once more within him, the curse fragment awakening briefly from its dormant state. Pride is nothing without absolute strength. It whispered again, the words Ichoin. Ji through his consciousness with cold clarity. And strength is nothing without proper application. Remember that, vessel, as you navigate this new existence. For we have much to accomplish together. The voice receded before Issei could question it further, leaving behind only a lingering sensation of anticipation, as if ancient eyes had opened after centuries of slumber to find the world ripe for reshaping. Outside the windows of the old schoolhouse, night had fully descended upon Kuo town, stars emerging in a sky untouched by the supernatural drama unfolding below. Yet Issei couldn't help feeling that the darkness watching him now extended far beyond the physical absence of light, a primordial shadow that had waited countless ages for precisely this moment to arrive. Whatever path lay ahead, one thing had become abundantly clear: nothing would ever be the same again. The ordinary high school student had died with Rainer's first attack, replaced by something unprecedented in the annals of supernatural history, a nexus point where dragon, sorcerer, and ancient curse converged in a single human vessel. The real question was what would emerge from that convergence when the powers fully awakened. Chapter 1 End **# Chapter 2, Converging Worlds. Kuo Town existed in layers. This was Issei Hyodo's first coherent thought as he walked to school the morning after his world had been irrevocably altered. With his newly awakened six eyes, the ordinary suburban landscape transformed into a palimpsest of realities, the mundane physical world most humans perceived layered beneath subtle energetic currents. Demonic ward boundaries, and occasional flashes of what Rias had termed cursed energy. A businessman hurried past, briefcase swinging. Six eyes revealed not just the Ma's physical form but the pale blue aura of entirely ordinary human vitality surrounding him. Three teenagers loitered near a convenience store, their energies similarly unremarkable except for one GI.RL whose latent potential glimmered slightly brighter than her companions, perhaps a dormant sacred gear or minor magical affinity that would likely never activate. "You're staring at everything like it's your first day on Earth," observed a cool, measured voice beside him. Sharon had appeared with the silent grace that seemed to characterize her movements, falling into step beside Issei without warning. Her golden eyes studied him with that same unnerving directness he was beginning to recognize as her natural state rather than deliberate intimidation. "Everything looks different," Issei admitted. "Like I'm seeing multiple versions of reality simultaneously." Six eyes, Sharon nodded. Total vision. Issei had quickly realized that the white-haired girl's terse speech pattern wasn't rudeness but simply her nature, efficient communication without unnecessary elaboration. Despite her diminutive stature and youthful appearance, something in her demeanor suggested experiences beyond her apparent age. "Rias asked me to escort you," she continued after a moment. "Protection until you control powers better." "I appreciate it," Issei replied sincerely. The memory of Rainer's attack remained viscerally present. Her promise that others would come for him a constant shadow on his thoughts. "Though won't people wonder why we're suddenly walking to school together?" Sharon's expression remained neutral, but Issei thought he detected a microsecond of amusement in the slight shift of her eyebrows. "Already rumors. Transfer student loves your cooking." "My cooking? I've never." "Just a rumor," she interrupted with the barest hint of a shrug. "Doesn't need truth." The conversation paused as they approached the school gates, where students gathered in the usual morning social clusters. Issei noticed several curious glances directed their way, confirming Sharon's statement about rumors already circulating. His former status as one-third of the perverted trio made a NY association with one of the school's most reserved female students inherently gossip-worthy. Focus on controlling your vision today, Sharon advised quietly as they entered the school grounds. Six eyes consume enormous energy. Need practice to modulate. Issei nodded, already feeling the strain of continuously enhanced perception. While the comprehensive vision was extraordinary, maintaining it demanded constant energy and mental processing that left him perpetually exhausted. How do I turn it off? Or at least, dial it back? Close your eyes. Visualize regular sight. Open slowly. Her golden gaze met his directly. Intention matters. Six eyes respond to will. Following her instructions, Issei stopped walking, closed his eyes, and deliberately focused on the concept of normal vision, just ordinary colors, shapes, and lighting without the overwhelming deluge of supernatural information. When he reopened his eyes, the world appeared substantially more conventional, though still with hints of energy patterns at the periphery of his awareness. Better, he murmured, relief flooding through him as the mental strain immediately decreased. Sharon nodded once in approval. Practice switching. Control comes with experience. She gestured toward the main building. Club room after school. Rias will explain more. With that, she departed toward her own classroom, leaving Issei to navigate the renewed attention from his fellow students alone. The whispers followed him down the hallway. Isn't that Hyodo with Chuju-san? Since when does she talk to anyone, especially one of the perverted trio? Maybe she's his cousin or something. I heard she transferred here because of him. Issei ignored the speculation, focusing instead on the more immediate challenge of appearing normal while his entire perception of reality had fundamentally changed. He slid into his classroom seat just as the bell rang, nodding absently at Matsuda and Motohama's questioning looks. Dude, were you seriously walking with Tuju? Matsuda hissed, leaning across the aisle. The first-year Ice Queen. How do you even know her? Before Issei could formulate a reasonable explanation, the classroom door slid open to admit their homeroom teacher accompanied by an unfamiliar female student. Tall and slender with short dark hair cut in a precise bob, she carried herself with unmistakable confidence. Even without activating his six eyes, Issei sensed something different about her, a contained intensity that set her apart from ordinary students. Class, we have a transfer student joining us today, the teacher announced. Please welcome Zenin Mai-san, who has come to us from Tokyo. The new student bowed precisely. I look forward to studying with you all, she stated, her tone polite but oddly formal, as if reciting a practiced line without particular investment in its delivery. As she raised her head, her gaze swept the classroom in methodical assessment before stopping abruptly on Issei. Even across the room, he could feel the sudden intensity of her focus, not hostile, precisely, but calculating and analytical. Zenin-san, you can take the empty seat near the window, the teacher directed. Oblivious to the silent exchange. Throughout the morning lessons, Issei periodically felt Mai's attention return to him, her observation so deliberate it almost had physical weight. During their mid-morning break, he intentionally activated his six eyes for a brief moment to examine her properly, and immediately understood why she had triggered his instincts. Unlike Hai's classmates' ordinary human energy signatures, Mai Zenin radiated a controlled current of power that resembled neither devil energy nor the fallen angel's light-based abilities. Instead, her aura displayed intricate patterns of what he now recognized as cursed energy, similar in fundamental composition to his own six eyes, though lacking their specific qualities. A jujutsu sorcerer, then, as Rias had described during their conversation the previous night, humans who manipulated cursed energy to combat malevolent supernatural forces called cursed spirits. The appearance of such a sorcerer immediately following his own awakening could hardly be coincidental. When the lunch bell rang, Issei deliberately avoided his usual routine with Matsuda and Motohama, making eye contact with Mai before eating to the rooftop, neutral territory where they could speak privately. He had barely reached the railing when the rooftop door opened behind him. Hyodo Issei, Mai stated, not a question but confirmation as she approached. Born in this town, unremarkable academic performance, no known family connection to Jujutsu Society. Her sharp eyes studied him with clinical precision. Yet somehow manifesting both limitless technique and six eyes simultaneously, causing spatial anomalies detectable from Tokyo. And you're my Zenin, Issei countered, deciding directness was the best approach. Quote, a jujutsu sorcerer sent to investigate those anomalies. If she was surprised by his knowledge, she concealed it perfectly. The Zenin clan maintains special interest in eye-based techniques, she replied. Stopping several meters away, a tactical distance, Issei noted. When multiple sensors detected Six Eyes activating after decades of absence, naturally we took notice. I only awakened these abilities 3 days ago, Issei explained, seeing no benefit in deception. I'm still learning to control them. Mai's expression remained neutral, but her posture shifted slightly. 3 days, she repeated. With no prior training or awareness of jujutsu. She shook her head minutely. That's not how inherited techniques typically manifest. Six Eyes and Limitless require years of specialized training, even for those born with the innate capacity. It wasn't exactly voluntary, Issei admitted. The awakening was triggered by a fallen angel's attempt to kill me. This information visibly startled her. The first crack in her composed facade. Fallen angel, you've encountered biblical faction entities. More than encountered. I'm currently allied with devils from the Grimoire clan. Will I figure out how to control these abilities? Mai's right hand twitched slightly, a reflexive gesture toward what Issei suspected was a concealed weapon or cursed tool. Devils, she stated flatly. You've aligned with devils without understanding the political implications. I aligned with the people who offered help when someone tried to murder me, Issei corrected, feeling a flash of irritation. I don't exactly have a comprehensive guidebook to supernatural politics. For several seconds, Mai simply observed him, apparently recalculating her approach. When she spoke again, her tone had shifted from accusatory to pragmatic. The Zenin clan will want to establish formal contact with you, she stated. Six Eyes belong to Jujutsu Society. They've historically been vital in managing cursed spirit threats, particularly special grade manifestations. I'm not really interested in becoming anyone's property, Issei replied carefully. Property is not the correct framework, Mai countered. Though something in her expression suggested this was exactly how certain elements of her clan might view the situation. However, without proper training, Six Eyes and Limitless can become dangerous, to yourself and others. Spatial manipulation without precision control has caused catastrophic incidents historically. The warning resonated with Issei's own concerns. His accidental use of the dismantle technique against Rainer had emerged instinctively, without conscious control or understanding. What might happen if similar techniques manifested in more populated areas? I appreciate the concern, he acknowledged. But my situation is complicated. Because of the devils? Mai asked, her tone carefully neutral. Partly, Issei admitted, but also because Six Eyes aren't the only ability I've awakened. He held up his left hand, allowing a flicker of crimson energy to manifest briefly around his fingers, just enough to indicate Didrag's presence without fully materializing the boosted gear. I contain a dragon spirit in a sacred gear called boosted gear. And there's a third power as well, something older and more malevolent that occasionally speaks to me. Mai's composure faltered visibly at this revelation, her eyes widening. 3 distinct supernatural power sources coexisting in a single vessel, she said slowly. That should be theoretically impossible, without catastrophic spiritual rejection. And yet, here we are. Issei spread his hands in a gesture of helpless acknowledgement. A lengthy silence followed as Mai appeared to process this information, her analytical mind visibly reassessing the situation. I need to consult with my superiors, she finally stated. This goes beyond standard protocols. I understand, Issei nodded. But I'd appreciate discretion. I'm still figuring this out, and drawing too much attention from too many factions could get complicated quickly. Mai studied him for another long moment before giving a single, precise nod. Reasonable caution. I'll maintain limited distribution of information pending further assessment. She reached into her uniform pocket and extracted a plain business card bearing only a name and phone number. Direct contact if you experience uncontrolled technique manifestation or spatial distortion. As Issei accepted the card, their fingers briefly touched, and apparently insignificant. I can't contact that nonetheless sent a cascade of sensory information through his partially activated 6 eyes. In that momentary connection, he glimpsed fragments of Mai's emotional landscape beneath. Her controlled exterior, determination tinged with resentment, ambition constrained by tradition, and a surprising undercurrent of fear, not of him, specifically, but of the implications his existence presented for whatever complicated personal situation she navigated within her clan. The lunch bell signaling the end of break interrupted any further conversation. Mai turned toward the door with military precision, pausing only briefly at the threshold. The limitless with 6 eyes is considered the pinnacle of jujutsu techniques, she stated without turning around. In the wrong hands, or without proper control, it could reshape reality itself. Remember that, Hyodo-san. With that ominous warning, she departed, leaving Issei alone with the whipping spring breeze and the uneasy sense at his already complicated situation had just acquired another layer of complexity. The Occult Research Club room hummed with suppressed energy when Issei arrived after classes ended. Rias sat behind her ornate desk, long fingers steepled before her as she studied a document bearing an elaborate wax seal. Akino stood nearby, preparing tea with graceful efficiency while maintaining a conversa. Tion with a young man Issei hadn't met previously, handsome with blonde hair and features that seemed more European than Japanese. Sharon, who had escorted Issei from his classroom, moved silently to her customary perch on the sofa arm, nodding toward an empty seat in silent invitation for him to join them. Ah, Issei-kun, Rias looked up, setting aside the document. Perfect timing. I was just reviewing some concerning intelligence about fallen angel movements in the area. More like Rainer, Issei asked, taking the offered seat. Similar rank but potentially more numerous, Rias confirmed. It appears your encounter has triggered increased interest in Kuo territory. My fault, then, Issei muttered, discomfort evident in his expression. Not at all, interrupted the blonde young man, approaching with a welcoming smile. Supernatural factions have always maintained unhealthy interest in rare abilities. I'm Kiba Yuto, by the way, Knight of Rias Grimori's peerage. He means he's very fast with a sword, Akino clarified with her characteristic subtle smile, delivering teacups with elegant precision. Each piece in a devil's peerage has specific enhanced abilities. Issei accepted the offered tea with a grateful nod. I met someone else interested in my abilities today, a jujutsu sorcerer named Maizenin who transferred into my class. This revelation caused a momentary stillness in the room, the various devils exchanging glances of varying concern. The Zenin clan, Rias finally said, leaning forward slightly. One of the 3 great jujutsu families, known part Ikularly for inherited techniques involving visual abilities. She mentioned they have special interest in eye techniques, Issei confirmed. Though she seemed more surprised about my connection to devils than my actual abilities. Jujutsu Sorcerer Society maintains deliberate separation from biblical factions, Rias explained. They deal exclusively with cursed spirits and cursed energy, viewing angels, devils, and related supernatural entities as an entirely separate ecosystem. Cross-faction interaction happens rarely and usually with significant political formality. She's watching you, Sharon stated flatly. Assessment. Potential threat. Thanks for that comforting thought, Issei sighed, taking a sip of tea. Any other factions I should worry about taking an interest in my apparently very desirable eyeballs? Several, unfortunately, Rias acknowledged with a slight grimace. 6 eyes alone would attract attention from multiple groups. Combined with a Longinus class sack, red gear and this unidentified third power, well, you represent an unprecedented concentration of abilities that various factions might covet. Or fear, Akino added softly, her usually playful demeanor momentarily serious. Power of this magnitude represents potential threat as much as potential asset. Issei absorbed this sobering assessment in silence. 3 days ago, his greatest concerns had involved passing exams and his perpetual bad luck with girls. Now he apparently represented a political focal point for supernatural factions he barely understood. So what do we do? He finally asked. We train, Kiba answered simply. Control is your best protection. Abilities this powerful require discipline to prevent accidents that could provoke preemptive action from wary factions. Precisely, Rias agreed. I've arranged for specialized training resources suited to each aspect of your abilities. For the boosted gear, Kaneko. I prefer Sharon, the white-haired girl interrupted quietly but firmly. Rias nodded in acknowledgement. Of course, Sharon, Then, we'll help you develop physical techniques to channel the sacred gear's power effectively. For the 6 Eyes and Limitless, I've acquired several texts on spatial manipulation theory from Devil Archives, though they may differ somewhat from Jujutsu Society methodology. And the third power? Issei asked, almost reluctantly. A moment of uncomfortable silence followed before Akeno answered. For that, we may need more information before establishing a training protocol. Has the presence communicated further since yesterday? Not directly, Issei admitted, though I feel it sometimes, like something watching from inside my own mind. Waiting. For what? Kiba questioned. Issei shook his head. I don't know, but it feels patient. Like whatever it's waiting for operates on a much longer timescale than we do. The ominous implication hung in the air until Rias deliberately redirected the conversation toward more immediate concerns. We should begin with basic control exercises for your 6 eyes, she decided. Based on Sharon's advice about energy conservation, you'll need to develop the ability to activate and deactivate them at will before attempting more advanced techniques. The remainder of the afternoon passed in focused practice, meditative exercises designed to help Issei regulate his visual perception, switching between normal sight and various levels of 6 eyes enhancement. By early evening, he had developed rudimentary control, able to activate his enhanced vision intention ally rather than having it function continuously. Significant improvement, Sharon noted as they concluded the session, her golden eyes studying him with what Issei was beginning to recognize as AP. Proval despite her minimal expression changes. Indeed, Rias agreed. Tomorrow we can begin working with more practical applications. For tonight, however, we should discuss protection arrangements. Protection? Issei questioned. You've been targeted once already, Kiba pointed out reasonably. Until you can fully defend yourself, precautions are prudent. Rias nodded. We've established a rotation. Sharon will continue morning escort duty. Akeno will monitor from a distance during school hours. Kiba will accompany you home and maintain evening surveillance. I've also strengthened the warding around your family's home. My family, Issei said suddenly, concern flashing across his features. Could they be in danger because of me? It's a consideration, Rias acknowledged, her tone gentle but honest. However, the primary interest is in you specifically. Conventional supernatural conflicts operate with certain unwritten rules regarding uninvolved family members. But unconventional conflicts, Issei pressed, are precisely why we're establishing comprehensive protection, Rias concluded firmly. Now, shall we walk you home? Your parents will be wondering where you are. As the group prepared to depart, Issei felt a sudden, sharp pain behind his eyes, different from the headaches that had preceded his awakening, more like an internal alarm triggering in response to external threat. Instinctively activating his 6 eyes, he scanned their surroundings, focusing beyond the physical confines of the old schoolhouse. Something's out there, he stated, voice dropping to urgent whisper. Northwest perimeter of school grounds. It doesn't feel like Rainer or other fallen angels. More like corrupted energy. Unstable. Sharon immediately tensed, nostrils flaring slightly as she scented the air. Cursed spirit, she confirmed. Strong one. A cursed spirit. Here, Rias questioned, surprise evident in her tone. They rarely manifest in devil-controlled territories. Kiba had already summoned a sword to hand, the blade materializing from a small dimensional pocket with practiced ease. Deliberate or coincidental? Unclear, Sharon responded, moving toward the window with silent grace. But hunting something. Following energy trail, the realization struck Issei with sudden clarity. It's tracking me, he stated with grim certainty. The 6 eyes, or the cursed techniques I used yesterday, they must have left some kind of energetic signature it can follow. My Zenin mentioned spatial anomalies detectable from Tokyo, he added. If Jujutsu sorcerers could sense it, cursed spirits probably could too. Rias processed this information quickly, her expression shifting from surprise to tactical assessment. Then we have an opportunity, she decided. A controlled encounter with a cursed spirit could provide valuable experience in coordinating your different abilities in combat situations. You want to use it as a training exercise? Issei questioned, uncertainty evident in his voice. With full backup from my peerage, Rias clarified. We'll contain the situation if it exceeds your current capabilities, but real combat experience irreplaceable for developing battle instincts. Akino's lips curved in a small, anticipatory smile. And if it's deliberately hunting you, better to confront it under controlled circumstances than be surprised later. The logic was sound, if somewhat nerve-wracking from Issei's perspective. He nodded slowly, determination replacing his initial hesitation. All right, how do we approach this? Quote, you and Sharon will make primary contact, Rias instructed. Her physical abilities complement your perception advantages. Kiba will flank from the east, while Akino provides aerial support. All my, NTAIN a containment barrier to prevent collateral damage or civilian involvement. The straightforward battlefield deployment spoke to Rias's experience as a tactical commander, impressing Issei Desp. I.e. his limited knowledge of supernatural combat protocols. Within minutes, they had moved into position near the school's athletic fields, using the gathering twilight as additional cover. Through his activated 6 eyes, Issei could perceive the cursed spirit clearly despite the distance and failing light. Unlike Rainer's distinctly humanoid form, this entity resembled nothing in nature, a writhing mass of distorted limbs surrounding a core of densely concentrated negative energy, movement occurring through irregular lurching motions as it prowled the school perimeter. Special grade, Sharon murmured beside him. Her petite form coiled with potential energy. Dangerous. Formed from accumulated negative emotions. Probably drawn by spatial distortion from your awakening. How do we fight something like that? Issei whispered, studying the creature's bizarre anatomy through 6 eyes analysis. Hit very hard, Sharon replied with unexpected pragmatism. Or use cursed techniques. 6 eyes should see weak points. As if sensing their attention, the cursed spirit suddenly paused, its amorphous form rippling with apparent awareness. Multiple appendages rotated in their direction, revealing structures resembling eyes embedded in inappropriate anatomical locations. A sound emerged from the creature, not quite vocalization but something resembling radio static overlaid with fragments of human speech. 6 eyes. The disjointed words emerged from the creature with distorted clarity. Give, consume, mine. With that final, emphatically projected word, the cursed spirit launched itself toward them with shocking speed, covering 30 meters in a blur of unnatural movement. Sharon immediately leapt forward to intercept, her small body displaying astonishing strength. As she delivered a devastating punch to one of the creature's reaching limbs. The impact would have shattered concrete, but against the cursed spirit it merely deflected the appendage's trajectory without causing apparent damage. 3 more limbs whipped toward her from different angles, forcing her into a series of acrobatic evasions. Physical attacks partially effective, she called to Issei as she flipped backward to regain distance. Needs cursed energy to disrupt form. Understanding immediately, Issei focused his 6 eyes on the creature's structure, analyzing its composition with mathematical precision. Unlike physical entities with clear anatomical vulnerabilities, the cursed spirit's form existed as a complex matrix of negative energy, densest at its core where multiple energy pathways converged. The core, he called to Sharon. Everything connects there. It's the equivalent of a central nervous system. Acting on this analysis, Issei extended his hand toward the creature, consciously attempting to manifest the limitless technique as he'd practiced earlier. A shimmer of distortion appeared between his palm and the approaching cursed spirit, the visual manifestation of infinity being imposed upon a fixed space. Between us and it, he muttered, focusing his will through the 6 eyes enhanced perception, exists infinite space. It cannot cross that distance no matter how fast it moves. The conceptual barrier solidified, causing the cursed spirit to crash against an invisible wall despite no physical obstruction existing in the space. Its distorted limbs flattened against the barrier, unable to progress forward despite increasingly frenzied movements. Containment successful, Issei reported, maintaining concentration on the technique. But I'm not sure how to actually destroy it. Perhaps I can assist with that, came a familiar voice as my Zenin emerged from the shadows near the school building, a metal hammer gripped in one hand and what appeared to be oversized nails in the other. Cursed spirits are Jujutsu Society jurisdiction, after all. Without waiting for acknowledgement, she launched herself toward the contained creature with practiced efficiency, driving one of the specialized nails directly into its writhing mass. Resonance nail technique, she announced as the nail embedded itself deeply. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The cursed spirit convulsed violently as the nail began to glow, conducting energy through its amorphous form in visible ripples of disruption. Mai drove a second nail into a different section of its mass, creating what Issei's 6 eyes revealed to be a resonating energy circuit between the 2 points. Maintain your barrier, she instructed Issei without looking away from her target. The containment amplifies the resonance effect. As Mai positioned a third nail, Kiba arrived at the scene, sword at ready but expression curious as he observed the Jujutsu sorcerer's methodical approach. I've never seen this technique before, he commented, watching as the nails created increasingly chaotic energy patterns within the trapped spirit. Because devils and Jujutsu sorcerers rarely cooperate, Mai replied tersely, driving the final nail into position. Now step back. Resonance collapse in 3, 2, 1. She struck her hammer against the nearest nail with precise force, reading a sound that seemed to exist simultaneously at multiple frequencies. The vibration propagated through the connected nails, causing the cursed spirit's energy structure to destabilize catastrophically. Within seconds, its form began to disintegrate, collapsing inward as the controlled energy cascade triggered complete structural failure. As the cursed spirit dissolved into dissipating negative energy, Mai turned toward Issei. Her expression clinically evaluative. Your limitless containment was impressively stable for an untrained practitioner, she observed. Though your technique execution lacks refinement. I'll work on that, Issei responded dryly, releasing the infinity barrier as the last traces of the cursed spirit vanished. Thanks for the assist, by the way. Mai nodded, once in acknowledgement before shifting her attention to Sharon and Kiba, studying the devils with barely concealed suspicion. Biblical faction entities cooperating with a 6 eyes user, she noted. Historically unprecedented. Many unprecedented things seem to be happening lately, Rias commented as she approached, having maintained the larger containment barrier throughout the encounter. Perhaps old factions' divisions require reconsideration in light of evolving circumstances. Mai's expression remained skeptical, but before she could respond, all attention shifted to the arrival of Akeno. Descending gracefully from her aerial observation position. 2 more signatures approaching from the west, she reported crisply. Different energy pattern, feels like fallen angels this time. Issei immediately reactivated his 6 eyes, scanning in the indicated direction. Sure enough, 2 winged figures were visible approaching at high speed, their light-based energy signatures unmistakable after his encounter with Rainer. Friends of my would-be murderer, I'm guessing, he muttered, tension returning to his posture. This is becoming overcrowded, Mai observed with evident displeasure, retrieving her specialized nails from the ground where the cursed spirit had dissipated. Jujutsu society maintains neutrality in biblical faction conflicts. Then perhaps you should depart, Rias suggested mildly, though her tone carried unmistakable authority. Unless you wish to reconsider that neutrality in this specific instance. Mai hesitated, visibly calculating potential consequences of various actions. Her gaze returned to Issei, focusing specifically on his eyes with evident professional interest. Finally, she reached a decision. I will observe, she stated precisely. Its eyes represent significant Jujutsu society asset. Their protection warrants exception to standard protocols. Before anyone could respond to this pragmatic justification, the fallen angels arrived. Descending to land 20 meters away with dramatic flourishes of their black feathered wings. Both male, they projected confident aggression in both posture and expression. Well, drawled the taller of the pair. A man with long dark hair and aristocratic features. Rainer wasn't exaggerating about the devil infestation in this town. Grimoire spawn playing with humans and, what's this? A Jujutsu sorcerer too, how charmingly eclectic. Danesik, Rias identified coldly. And Rogel, lower-tier fallen angels with delusions of importance. You're trespassing in territory under Grimoire protection. We're merely investigating reports of an unusual power signature, the second fallen angel, Rogel, replied with false innocence. Surely routine reconnaissance doesn't violate your precious territory agreements. Attempted assassination does, Kiba countered, sword still ready at his side. Your associate Rainer already tried to kill Issei Hyodo once. That constitutes more than reconnaissance. Both fallen angels shifted their attention to Issei, studying him with renewed interest. So this is the anomaly, Danesik mused. Doesn't look particularly special, Though those eyes. He narrowed his gaze. Interesting color pattern. Not quite human. Issei met their scrutiny directly, deliberately maintaining Six Eyes activation despite the energy drain. Through his enhanced perception, he could see the fallen angel's power signatures clearly, similar to Rainer's but with slight variations in pattern and intensity. Both significantly stronger than her, he noted with concern. Rainer acted without proper authorization, Danesik continued smoothly. An unfortunate misunderstanding we'd like to correct. Our superiors are quite interested in peaceful discussion regarding your unique attributes. Quote, peaceful discussion, Issei repeated skeptically. Is that why she tried to put a light spear through my chest? Danesik spread his hands in a gesture of apparent reasonability. Rainer has always been impulsive. Wiser heads now prevail, seeking mutually beneficial arrangements rather than conflict. Throughout this exchange, Issei noticed my observing with calculated attention, her posture suggesting readiness to act while her expression remained carefully neutral. The complex interplay of supernatural politics was clearly familiar territory for her. Despite her earlier comments about Jujutsu society neutrality, your arrangement offer is declined, Rias stated firmly. Issei Hyodo has allied with my household. Any discussion regarding his abilities goes through proper diplomatic channels with the Grimori family. Rogul's false pleasantness evaporated instantly. You devils always overreach, he snarled, light energy beginning to coalesce around his hands. The Grigori has prior claim to investigation of unusual sacred gear manifestations. Your territorial presumptions don't supersede established accords. And neither of you have jurisdiction over Six Eyes. Mai interjected unexpectedly, stepping forward with the confident authority of her clan position, which falls exclusively under Jujutsu society purview by traditions predating your factional agreements. Quote, the situation had escalated from diplomatic posturing to imminent conflict with remarkable speed. Issei felt power gathering from all parties, the distinctive crimson energy of Rias's destruction magic, Akino's lightning beginning to crackle subtly around her fingers, and the fallen angel's light spears taking form. Partner, Didrake's voice resonated suddenly in Issei's mind. This would be an appropriate moment to demonstrate the integrated capabilities of our combined powers. These lesser beings should understand what they're attempting to claim. The dragon's suggestion resonated with something within Issei, not just Didrake's battle-hungry nature, but also the cold analytical precision of Six Eyes and, more disturbingly, the dark anticipati. On of that third presence lurking in his consciousness. Everyone, stand down, Issei stated with unexpected authority, stepping forward. I'll handle this. The surprised looks from both allies and adversaries might have been amusing under different circumstances. Even Mai's carefully maintained composure slipped momentarily at his apparent confidence in facing two fallen angels alone. Issei, Rias began cautiously. You're still learning to control. I know, he interrupted gently. But they're here because of me. And they need to understand exactly what that means. Without waiting for further discussion, Issei focused his concentration on manifesting the boosted gear, feeling the familiar crimson gauntlet materialize around his left arm. The emerald jewel embedded in its surface began to glow immediately. Didrake's power responding to his intent. Boost. The sacred gear's automated announcement echoed across the field as Issei felt his baseline power double instantly. A twice critical. Danesik laughed dismissively. That's your great power. A common sacred gear that temporarily enhances physical abilities. Look closer. Mai suggested quietly from behind Issei. Enhanced sorcerer perception apparently recognizing what the fallen angels had missed. Activating his six eyes to their fullest capacity, Issei focused on the fallen angels' energy structures, analyzing their composition with mathematical precision. Where Rainer had been relatively straightforward to read, these higher-tier fallen angels possessed more complex defensive layering and power circulation systems. Boost complete, he murmured as the sacred gear finished its enhancement cycle. Rather than immediately initiating another boost, however, Issei channeled the doubled energy directly into his six eyes, using their analytical precision to identify the optimal application of force. The world slowed around him as his enhanced perception registered details with supernatural clarity. The exact tension in Danesik's wings indicating his likely first movement, the microsecond delay in Rogul's light spear formation suggesting a vulnerability in his energy control, the precise mathematical dimensions of space between their current positions. Infinity between specific points, Issei whispered, extending his hand toward the fallen angels. Unlike his earlier defensive application against the cursed spirit, this time he focused on creating selective infinity, allowing certain interactions while preventing others. A subtle distortion appeared in the air between them, invisible to normal perception but glowing with complex mathematical patterns to his 6 eyes. The fallen angels tensed, clearly sensing the technique's activation without fully understanding its nature. "What is this?" Rogul demanded, hurling his completed light spear directly at Issei. The energy construct traveled normally for the first half of its journey before suddenly stopping, hanging motionless in midair. Interesting application, Mai observed clinically from nearby. Selective infinity rather than absolute barrier. Danesik, recognizing the defensive technique from Rainer's description, launched himself skyward with a powerful beat of his wings, attempting to gain tactical advantage through aerial superiority. To his evident shock, he found himself unable to rise more than 2 meters. As if the space above him refused to allow further ascent. "What I've done," Issei explained with uncharacteristic calm, "is create infinite space in very specific vectors. Your attacks can't reach me. Your retreat paths are similarly extended to infinity. You exist in a carefully calculated pocket of normal space surrounded by mathematical impossibility." The precision control required this selective application of limitless was far beyond what Issei had practiced, yet the integration of boosted gears enhanced energy with 6 eyes analytical capacity made the seemingly impossible technique achievable. He could feel the strain of maintaining such complex spatial manipulation, but Diedrag's power compensated for his inexperience. "Boost," the sacred gear announced again, doubling his already enhanced capabilities and reinforcing the selective infinity barrier. "Now," Issei continued, extending his right hand with deliberate intent, "I'm going to demonstrate why attempting to claim me as an asset is fundamentally misguided." From his extended fingertips emerged a precisely controlled manifestation of the dismantle technique, not the wild, instinctive application that had severed Rainer's arm, but a calculated demonstration of surgical precision. The invisible line of division passed harmlessly through the space directly between the fallen angels, slicing through a nearby metal flagpole with such perfect precision that the severed section remained balanced atop the lower portion for several seconds before sliding off. "That technique," Danesik whispered, recognition and fear suddenly evident in his expression. "That's not possible. It belongs to someone you apparently recognize," Issei interrupted, not wanting the name spoken aloud. The dark NCE within him stirred at the fallen angel's reaction, a cold satisfaction emanating from that shadowed corner of his consciousness. "Consider this a formal demonstration," he continued, maintaining both the selective infinity barrier and his prepared dismantle technique. "I am not a sacred gear to be claimed, an asset to be acquired, or a weapon to be wielded. I am figuring out exactly what I am. And I'm doing that with allies I've chosen freely." With precise control, Issei released the spatial manipulations, allowing normal physics to resume throughout the area. The suspended light spear immediately dropped harmlessly to the ground, its energy dissipating without its creator's sustained attention. "Return to your superiors," he concluded firmly. "Tell them that Issei Hyodo is neither enemy nor asset to the Grigori. I'm simply someone who wishes to be left in peace while I master abilities I never asked for but now must control." The fallen angels exchanged uncertain glances, clearly reassessing their approach given this demonstration of unexpected capabilities. After a moment of tense silence, Danesik inclined his head in what might almost have been respect. "A message will be delivered," he stated with careful formality. "Though I cannot promise it will be heeded by all factions within the Grigori. Politics, you understand, I'm beginning to," Issei acknowledged dryly. With a final evaluative look, the fallen angels departed, wings carrying them swiftly into the darkening sky until they vanished from conventional sight, though Issei's 6 eyes could track IR energy signatures for significantly longer distance. As the tension of imminent conflict dissipated, Issei became aware of the considerable energy expenditure the demonstration had required. His knees buckled slightly as fatigue washed over him, prompting Sharon to materialize silently at his side, offering supportive stability despite her smaller stature. Impressive control, she commented quietly. But costly. Need efficient techniques. Indeed, Mai agreed, approaching with renewed analytical interest. The integration of sacred gear energy amplification with Six Eyes precision is theoretically fascinating. But your execution shows significant inefficiencies. With proper training, which I'm sure your clan would be delighted to provide, Rias interrupted smoothly, moving to stand beside Issei in a subtle display of alliance. Along with appropriate political obligations, naturally. Mai's expression cooled noticeably at the implication. Six Eyes training is specialized knowledge few possess. She stated precisely. The Zenin clan maintains historical records and methodologies developed over centuries specifically for these techniques, which I would genuinely appreciate learning. Issei interjected diplomatically, recognizing the value in maintaining connections to multiple factions rather than aligning exclusively with any single group. But as demonstrated, my situation involves abilities beyond just Six Eyes and Limitless. Akeno approached, offering a small supportive smile. Perhaps what's needed is not exclusive training from any single tradition, but rather an integrated approach drawing from multiple sources of expertise. The suggestion was elegant in its political implications, acknowledging the value of Jujutsu Society knowledge without ceding authority over Issei's development to Mai's clan, while simultaneously avoiding direct confrontation over jurisdictional claims. After a moment of consideration, Mai nodded once in apparent acceptance of this diplomatic compromise. Conditional cooperation may be arranged, pending consultation with clan leadership. She fixed Issei with a direct look. Regular updates on Six Eyes' development would be expected in exchange for technical guidance. That seems reasonable, Issei agreed cautiously. Excellent, Rias concluded with practiced diplomatic grace. Now perhaps we should all retire for the evening. It's been an eventful day, and I suspect tomorrow will bring fresh challenges. As the group began dispersing, Mai lingered momentarily near Issei. Your technique application was impressive for an untrained practitioner, she stated quietly, professional assessment briefly overcoming political calculation. But that third power, the cutting technique, it's concerning. I know, Issei acknowledged, keeping his voice equally low. I'm working on understanding it. Be careful, Mai advised, uncharacteristic emotion briefly crossing her features. Power without proper context can lead down dangerous paths. The Zenin clan has experience with such matters. Before he could inquire further about this cryptic warning, she had already turned away, departing with the same precise efficiency that characterized all her movements. She's worried about you, Sharon observed once Mai had moved beyond normal hearing range. Genuine concern beneath politics. You can tell, Issei asked, surprised by the assessment. Sharon tapped her nose lightly. Can smell emotions, fear, concern, interest. All present. The insight into Mai's concealed emotional state added another layer of complexity to an already multifaceted situation. What personal experiences informed her concern? What did the Zenin clan know about powers similar to his mysterious third ability? Come, Rias called gently, interrupting his contemplation. Let's get you home before your parents worry. We can discuss implications of today's events tomorrow. As they walked through the quiet evening streets, Kiba maintaining vigilant security while Akeno observed from above, Issei found himself reflecting on the rapidly expanding scope of his new reality. In just 4 days, he had gone from ordinary high school student to nexus point between supernatural factions, wielder of unprecedented combined abilities, and potential catalyst for shifting long-standing political boundaries. You handled yourself well today, Rias commented as they approached his family home. Both with the cursed spirit and the fallen angels. It didn't really feel like me, Issei admitted. More like, the abilities themselves knew what to do, and I just channeled them. A common experience during early power development, Rias assured him. As you train, the distinction between your intent and the ability's expression will blur until they function as natural extensions of your will. Issei nodded, though something about the experience continued to trouble him. Particularly how natural it had felt to demonstrate power as a means of establishing boundaries. The impulse didn't align with his previously non-confrontational personality, suggesting subtle influence from one or more of his awakened abilities. The strong established terms, whispered that dark third presence, momentarily surfacing from its usual dormancy. You merely demonstrated sufficient strength to warrant respect rather than coercion. There is nothing concerning about such fundamental truth. The casual arrogance of the statement, combined with its disturbingly persuasive logic, sent a chill through Issei despite the warm spring evening. Whatever ancient being had fragmented itself into his consciousness carried perspectives formed in contexts far removed from modern ethical frameworks. Rest well, Rias advised as they reached his home. Seemingly unaware of his internal dialogue. Kiba will maintain surveillance overnight, and Sharon will meet you tomorrow morning as usual. Issei nodded gratefully. Thank you for everything. As his new allies departed, leaving only Kiba maintaining discreet distance from a neighboring rooftop, Issei entered his family home with the disconcerting realization that He was returning to a life that no longer quite fit. His parents greeted him with familiar affection, asking about his day with no conception that their son had contained cursed spirits and confronted fallen angels mere hours earlier. The mundane normalcy of dinner conversation and household routines felt simultaneously precious and precarious, a fragile bubble of ordinary human existence surrounding a nexus point of supernatural convergence. As he lay in bed later that night, Issei wondered how long such normalcy could possibly last when cursed spirits, fallen angels, and jujutsu sorcerers had all identified him as a person of extraordinary interest within a single day. As long as you're strong enough to protect it, came the unbidden answer from that dark corner of his mind, the ancient voice resonating with cold certainty. In the end, everything, normalcy, family, choice itself, exists only within the boundaries established by absolute strength. For once, Issei found himself unable to dismiss the fragment's philosophy as simple arrogance. After witnessing how quickly supernatural politics defaulted to calculations of power and advantage, the cynical perspective carried uncomfortable relevance. As sleep finally claimed him, his dreams filled with intersecting realities and converging worlds, one question echoed through the layers of his consciousness: in becoming strong enough to protect what mattered, would he remain the person who valued those things in the first place? The answer, like the boundaries between the converging supernatural worlds he now straddled, remained frustratingly undefined. Chapter 2 End Chapter 3, Fractured Techniques. The training arena beneath the old schoolhouse resembled nothing Issei had expected. Rather than the sparse, utilitarian space typical of school gymnasiums, the massive underground chamber featured reinforced stone walls etched with ancient runic patterns, a floor composed of specialized impact-absorbing material, and ceiling-mounted crystalline structures that radiated soft, ambient light. "My family established this facility decades ago," Rias explained as she led Issei through a set of heavy oak doors emblazoned with the Grimoire crest. "The wards allow for high-level power usage without detection from the human world above or supernatural factions monitoring the area." Issei activated his six eyes fly to analyze the chamber's construction, marveling at the intricate magical engineering involved. Layered spatial barriers created what amounted to a pocket dimension attached to conventional ray lidi, larger inside than physically possible, with sophisticated energy dampening measures woven through every surface. "This is incredible," he admitted, deactivating his enhanced vision before the stained analysis could drain his still limited stamina. "How does something like this even get built without attracting attention?" "Gradually," Akino answered, entering behind them with an equipment case balanced effortlessly on one shoulder. "Over generations, with appropriate memories modified as construction progressed. Devil politics necessitates maintaining secure facilities in various territories." The casual reference to memory manipulation sent a small chill through Issei, a reminder that despite their friendly demeanor, devils operated according to fundamentally different ethical frameworks than humans. "Don't worry," Rias added, apparently noticing his momentary discomfort. "Such measures are strictly regulated by the current Mao administration. Random memory alteration will violate territory accords between factions." Before Issei could process the implications of non-random memory alteration, Sharon entered the arena, accompanied by Kiba and, surprisingly, Maizenin. The jujutsu sorcerer carried a cloth-wrapped bundle and maintained her characteristic neutral expression, though Issei detected subtle tension in her posture as she took in the decidedly devil-oriented architectural details surrounding them. Zenin-san has agreed to provide specialized instruction regarding Six Eyes techniques, Rias explained, gesturing toward the sorcerer with diplomatic courtesy. Given the unprecedented nature of your ability convergence, we've established a temporary cooperation framework that respects both devil and jujutsu sorcerer protocols. Translation. Complete. Political documents were exchanged ensuring neither side can claim exclusive influence, Akino clarified with her characteristic subtle smile. Supernatural bureaucracy at its finest. Mai acknowledged this assessment with a slight nod. The arrangement is conditional pending further evaluation of development outcomes. Her gaze shifted to Issei, analytical but not unfriendly. Today's focus LLB basic energy differentiation, distinguishing between cursed energy, demonic power, and sacred gear manifestation within your system. Because they're currently all jumbled together, Issei guessed, recalling how chaotic his internal energy flows appeared even to his own Six Eyes. Precisely, Mai confirmed. Six Eyes grant perfect vision of energy patterns, but without proper training to categorize what you're seeing. The information becomes overwhelming and ultimately useless. Like having perfect eyesight but not knowing how to read, Kiba offered as he began arranging various Ning implements along the arena's perimeter. Mai inclined her head in acknowledgement of the analogy. A reasonable comparison. Six Eyes see everything, but interpretation requires structured knowledge. The morning proceeded with methodical efficiency, each instructor focusing on different aspects of Issei's developing abilities. Mai guided him through visualization exercises designed to help differentiate the distinct energy signatures flowing through his system. Sharon focused on physical conditioning specifically tailored to sacred gear wielders, emphasizing techniques to channel Drake's power without placing excessive strain on his human body. Kiba provided combat fundamentals, teaching basic defensive stances and movement patterns adaptable to various power applications. Throughout these sessions, Issei found himself increasingly aware of subtle dynamics between his instructors. Mai maintained professional distance while occasionally exchanging evaluative glances with Rias. Two powerful women engaged in unspoken assessment of each other's methodologies and intentions. Sharon worked with minimal verbal instruction but surprising physical proximity, her hands occasionally adjusting Issei's stance with matter-of-fact precision that nonetheless carried a certain careful awareness. Akino observed more than participated, her violet eyes thoughtful as she studied the interaction of different training approaches. You're improving quickly, Rias noted during a brief hydration break, passing Issei a sports drink infused with what she described as minor restorative properties, developed specifically for humans working with supernatural energy systems. Especially in differentiating energy types. Mai's visualization method helps, Issei acknowledged, glancing toward where the jujutsu sorcerer was discussing something with Akino in low tones. Associating different energies with distinct sensory impressions makes them easier to identify. The technique Invo, LVED assigning specific sensory characteristics to each energy type, cursed energy manifesting as cool blue precision in his mind's eye, demonic power as warm crimson fluidity, and Drake's dragon energy as vibrant emerald pressure. The third power, the malevolent fragment, remained stubbornly resistant to categorization, presenting as shifting darkness that refused fixed association. Speaking of Mai, Rias commented carefully. Have you noticed anything unusual about her teaching approach? Any information she seems particularly interested in acquiring? The question carried obvious political undercurrents. Despite the cooperation agreement, Rias clearly maintained healthy skepticism about the Zenin clan's ultimate objectives regarding Six Eyes. She asks a lot about how the abilities manifest simultaneously. Issei replied after considering the question. Especially how limitless techniques interact with boosted gear energy. But she's been straightforward about jujutsu society's interest in documenting Six Eyes functionality. Rias nodded thoughtfully. Expected areas of curiosity, then. Just maintain awareness of information exchange dynamics. The Zenin clan has complex internal politics regarding inherited techniques. Before Issei could inquire further about this cryptic warning, Akino approached, her expression unusually serious. We have a situation developing near the commercial district, she reported quietly. Energy signature matching yesterday's cursed spirit but significantly stronger. Tsubaki just contacted me. The student council is attempting containment, but civilians are present. The student council, Issei questioned, momentarily confused by the reference to another school organization. Sona Citri's peerage, Rias clarified briskly, her dem. Einer shifting from instructor to tactical commander. Another devil household overseeing Kuo alongside the Grimoire clan. If they're requesting support, the situation must be escalating rapidly. Mai had joined them during this exchange, her expression sharpening at the mention of cursed spirits. Special grade manifestation in commercial areas suggests targeted activity rather than random occurrence, she observed. Especially two significant manifestations in consecutive days. You believe they're being drawn here deliberately? Rias questioned. Or responding to something already present, Mai replied, her gaze shifting briefly to Issei. The convergence of six eyes with other power signatures creates distinctive spiritual pressure. Certain curses are naturally attracted to unusual energy concentrations. The implication hung uncomfortably in the air, that Issei's very existence might be inadvertently drawing dangerous entities to Kuo. Then we have responsibility to address the situation, Rias decided. Akano. Prepare transportation circle, combat configuration, primary containment protocols. As the group moved with practiced efficiency toward a specialized transporter, Chion matrix inscribed in one corner of the training arena, Issei felt a familiar stirring of that dark third presence, the fragment awakening with what felt disturbingly like anticipation. Cursed SP. Irits drawn to power recognize worthy vessels, it whispered at the edges of his consciousness. They seek what they sense in you, my scattered fragments calling to be reunited. The statement sent a chill through Issei, quite different from the immediate concern about civilian safety. What exactly were these fragments? What would reunion of such malevolent power mean? The questions remained Una's word as Akano completed the transportation circle, crimson light enveloping them as space folded between their current location and the commercial district. Reality reasserted itself in a secluded service alley behind Kuo's main shopping center. Distant screams and the distinctive sound of energy impacts immediately oriented them toward the disturbance, a central plaza where weekend shoppers had been enjoying a previously peaceful afternoon. Perimeter established but incomplete, reported a bespectacled young woman who materialized beside them with preternatural speed. President Citri has civilian extraction underway, but containment is proving problematic. The entity demonstrates unusual resistance to standard devil suppression techniques. Thank you, Tsubaki, Rias acknowledged formally. We'll coordinate from the north approach. Please inform Sona that we have Jujutsu Society representation present as well. Issei activated his six eyes as the group moved quickly toward the disturbance, analyzing the chaotic energy patterns emanating from the plaza. Unlike the previous day's cursed spirit, this entity presented a more cohesive structure, still fundamentally inhuman but organized around recognizable patterns rather than amorphous chaos. Different classification, Mai noted clinically as they reached a vantage point overlooking the scene. Humanoid special grade with intelligence markers. Significantly more dangerous than yesterday's manifestation. The assessment proved immediately accurate. The cursed spirit had indeed taken roughly humanoid form, a tall, IATED figure with elongated limbs and a face composed of overlapping mouths arranged in concentric circles. Most concerning, however, was its methodical movement pattern as it pursued fleeing civilians, displaying obvious targeting intelligence rather than blind aggression. Several individuals in Kuo Academy uniforms, Sona Citri's peerage, Issei presumed, maintained a defensive perimeter while working to evacuate civilians from the area. Their coordinated water and ice-based abilities suggested practiced teamwork, though they appeared to be struggling against the cursed spirit's unusual resilience. It's searching for something specific, Sharon observed quietly, her enhanced senses apparently detecting patterns Issei hadn't yet recognized. Mai nodded in agreement. Targeted manifestation, as suspected. Question is, what specifically attracted it? General convergence energy or something more defined? As if in answer, the cursed spirit suddenly paused in its methodical advance, multiple mouths opening simultaneously as it oriented directly toward their position with unnerving precision. Six eyes, it announced in a discordant chorus of overlapping voices. Fragment, vessel, well, that's unsettlingly specific. Kiba commented, materializing a sword in preparation for engagement. The cursed spirit launched itself toward their position with shocking speed, covering 30 Y meters in a blur that even Issei's enhanced vision struggled to track completely. Its movement pattern suggested not just raw aggression but tactical intelligence, angling to separate Issei from his more experienced companions. Containment pattern beta, Rias commanded, crimson destruction energy gathering around her hands. Kiba, intercepting position. Akeno, aerial suppression. Sharon, civilian extraction support. As the Devil Peerage moved with practiced coordination, Mai stepped forward, her own cursed energy manifesting in controlled patterns around specialized tools drawn from concealed holsters. "I'll establish resonance points for structural collapse," she stated professionally. Six Eyes user should maintain observation position for pattern analysis. Despite the logical tactical recommendation, Issei found himself reluctant to remain in a purely supportive role. The convergence of powers within him responded to the immediate threat, Ddrake's combat instincts merging Six Eyes' analytical precision and, more concerning, that dark fragment's eager anticipation. "A vessel should demonstrate worthiness, the malevolent presence whispered. Observer roles are for the weak and inconsequential." Before Issei could fully process this dangerous philosophical nudge, the cursed spirit altered its approach trajectory, bypassing Kiba's intercepting position with uncanny predictive movement. Its elongated limbs contorted in physically impossible angles, reaching toward Issei with fingers that extended like grasping tentacles. "Vessel," its many mouths chanted in disturbing unison. "Suitable vessel." Acting on instinct rather than trained response, Issei activated boosted gear, the crimson gauntlet materializing around his left arm as emerald light pulsed from its embedded jewel. "Boost," announced the sacred gear as his baseline power doubled instantly. Simultaneously, he channeled his nascent understanding of limitless through his enhanced perception, creating a selective infinity barrier between himself and the approaching cursed spirit. Unlike his previous applications, however, this barrier contained deliberate imperfections, calculated gaps in spatial distortion designed to channel the entity's movement in predictable directions. Interesting approach, Mai observed from nearby, already positioning her specialized nails at strategic points surrounding the combat zone. Directional infinity rather than absolute barrier. The technique worked as Issei had envisioned, forcing the cursed spirit to alter its movement path directly into the overlapping fields of fire established by Rias and Akeno. Destruction magic and concentrated lightning struck the entity simultaneously, momentarily disrupting its physical cohesion. Pattern instability at 37%. Issei reported automatically, his six eyes analyzing the impact results with mathematical precision. Primary core structure uncompromised but secondary manifestation layers disrupted. Mai glanced at him with momentary surprise, apparently recognizing the specialized jujutsu analysis terminology he'd used without conscious thought. Six eyes intuitive functionality activating, she noted with professional interest. Accessing innate technique knowledge without formal training. The momentary academic observation ended as the cursed spirit recovered with unsettling speed. Its disrupted physical form reconsolidating through accelerated energy manipulation. Multiple mouths opened in what appeared to be frustrated rage as it changed tactics, ignoring the evil peerage entirely to focus exclusively on Issei. "Fragment holder," it howled, voice modulating into something almost plaintive. "Release. Join. Complete." The strange phrasing triggered an immediate response from the dark presence within Issei, a surge of recognition and what felt disturbingly like possessive annoyance. "Mine, the fragment hissed internally. "My vessels. My fragments. Not for lesser curses to claim or command." The proprietary sentiment carried implications Issei had no time to process as the cursed spirit launched a new attack, not physical but what his six eyes identified as a specialized domain technique. Reality rippled outward from the entity's core as it attempted to establish a bounded field with altered physical properties. "Domain expansion," Mai shouted in warning, immediately accelerating her nail placement pattern. Everyone maintain physical distance from effect boundary. Issei had received only theoretical explanation of domains during the morning training session. But Six Eyes revealed the fundamental danger immediately. Within such bounded spaces, the cursed spirit could impose its own conceptual rules, potentially neutralizing conventional defensive abilities. Acting on analytical instinct rather than experience, Issei channeled his doubled energy directly into Limitless, attempting a countermeasure Mai had mentioned but explicitly TLY described as theoretically possible but practically achievable only by fully realized Six Eyes masters. Infinity against domain boundary, he murmured, focusing his enhanced perception on the mathematics of the expanding effect. Where domain attempts to establish finite bounded space, impose infinite distance between boundary points. The conceptual confrontation manifested visibly as Cursed Spirit's expanding domain collided with Issei's hastily established spatial manipulation. Where the two techniques met, reality itself seemed to shudder, visual distortions rippling outward. Fundamentally incompatible mathematical principles contested for dominance. Impossible, Mai whispered, genuine shock breaking through her professional demeanor. Domain neutralization without established counter-domain. Despite Mai's amazement, Issei felt the tremendous strain of maintaining such advanced technique without proper training. His reserves depleted rapidly as he imposed infinite Y against the Cursed Spirit's expanding domain, creating a stalemate that couldn't be sustained indefinitely. Boost. The sacred gear announced again, doubling his already enhanced capabilities, but even this additional power merely postponed the inevitable resource depletion. You require my assistance, the dark fragment stated with calm certainty. The technique you need is already within you, my technique, waiting to be expressed. The offer carried obvious danger, allowing greater influence to the malevolent presence whose ultimate nature and intentions remained unknown. Yet the procedural reality of their situation offered limited alternatives as the Cursed Spirit's domain continued pressing against his failing counter-technique. What technique? Issei questioned internally. Maintaining outward focus on the spatial confrontation. Dismantle at its highest application, came the immediate response. Not merely dividing physical matter, but severing the connections between dimensional planes themselves. A blade that cuts not just objects but the very fabric of domains. The explanation resonated with something Issei had glimpsed during his Six Eyes analysis, NTAL weaknesses in the Cursed Spirit's domain structure, points where its conceptual imposition connected to base reality. If those connections could be severed, guide me, he acquiesced cautiously, but only this technique. Nothing more. Cold satisfaction emanated from the fragment as knowledge flowed into Issei's consciousness, not forced but revealed, as if uncovering something that had always existed within his mind. The dismantle technique's true nature unfolded with mathematical precision, revealing applications far beyond the simple matter division he had accidentally used against Rainer. Channeling this expanded understanding through his enhanced perception, Issei extended his right hand toward the contested boundary between techniques. Rather than attempting to maintain the increasingly unsustainable infinity counter, he now targeted the specific points where the Cursed Spirit's domain anchored to conventional reality. Dismantle. Domain severance, he announced, the technique name emerging from that gifted knowledge rather than conscious invention. From his extended hand, near invisible lines extended with perfect precision, striking exactly the structural weaknesses his Six Eyes had identified. Where these lines contacted the domain boundary, reality seemed to split along mathematically perfect planes, the cursed technique collapsing as its fundamental sections were severed with surgical accuracy. The effect was immediate and catastrophic, for the Cursed Spirit. As its domain collapsed, the entity released an otherworldly howl of rage and what sounded disturbingly like betrayal. Its physical form destabilized without the supporting conceptual framework, providing the opening Mai had been methodically preparing for. Resonance complete, she announced, activating her specialized nail configuration with a precise hammer strike. The resulting energy cascade tore through the Cursed Spirit's already compromised structure, creating destructive interference patterns that accelerated its dissolution. Rias immediately capitalized on the opening, crimson destruction energy focusing into a concentrated beam that struck the entity's exposed core. Akano, she called, maintaining the attack. Understanding the unspoken command, Akano channeled lightning directly into Rias's destruction beam, the combined energies creating a devastating composite attack that overwhelmed the Cursed Spirit's remaining defenses. Within seconds, its physical form had disintegrated completely, leaving only rapidly dissipating cursed energy. As the immediate threat subsided, Issei felt the accumulated strain of multiple high-level techniques suddenly crash through his system. His knees buckled as exhaustion overwhelmed his compensation mechanisms, the world Ting alarmingly as his consciousness threatened to follow the cursed spirit into dissolution. Strong hands caught him before he could collapse completely, not Chiron's as he might have expected, but Mai's. The Jujutsu sorcerer supported his weight with surprising gentleness, guiding him to sitting position against a nearby wall. Severe technique exhaustion, she diagnosed clinically, though Issei detected unexpected concern beneath her professional assessment. 6 eyes overtaxed through advanced applications without proper foundation training. Is he all right? Rias asked, approaching Key. CKLY as Akino coordinated with Sona's peerage to complete civilian extraction. Temporarily incapacitated but no permanent damage, Mai replied. Though the domain severance technique. She paused, studying Issei with renewed analytical intensity. That's not standard 6 eyes application. It's something else entirely. The implication hung uncomfortably between them, that the technique had originated from that third, unidentified power source rather than either 6 eyes or sacred gear abilities. It spoke to me, Issei admitted quietly, seeing no benefit in concealing information from those trying to help him. The fragment, it called the cursed spirit's domain, mine, and seemed almost possessive about it trying to reach me. This revelation caused obvious concern among his allies. Though Chiron merely nodded as if confirming a previous suspicion. Territorial response, she observed. Dominant curse rejecting lesser curse's claim. The entity specifically mentioned, fragments, and joining, Mai noted. Her professional demeanor returning as she processed this new information, suggesting connection between your third power and cursed spirits drawn to Kuo. My vessels, my fragments. Issei quoted the internal voice verbatim. That's what it said when the cursed spirit called me a fragment holder. Rias's expression darkened with genuine concern, suggesting T's third presence once existed in multiple vessels or physical forms that became separated. If cursed spirits are being drawn to these separated fragments, then we face potential escalation pattern, Mai completed the thought. Stronger manifestations systematically drawn to fragment energy. The tactical implications were disturbing enough, but Issei found himself more immediately concerned with the fragment itself, the casual ease with which it had shared advanced technique knowledge, and the unsettling possessiveness it displayed toward both him and the attacking entity. I need to know what this thing is, he stated firmly. Despite his exhausted state, if it's drawing threats to Kuo, if its fragments are scattered somewhere, we need information more than training right now. Rias nodded in agreement. Research priority has clearly shifted. Akino has access to certain restricted archives through her connections. Perhaps Jujutsu Society records might contain relevant historical data as well. Mai considered this suggestion with characteristic precision. Possible, though accessing certain historical repositories requires clan authorization. I can submit formal request based on public safety protocols. As they discussed next steps, Chiron suddenly tensed, her enhanced senses apparently detecting something beyond normal perception range. Company, she stated simply, golden eyes focusing northward. Approaching fast. Not devil, not curse. Issei activated his 6 eyes despite his depleted state, scanning in the indicated direction. The distinctive energy sign, Atura registered immediately. The light-based power of fallen angels, though configured differently than those he'd previously encountered. Fallen angels, he confirmed, but something's different about this one. The energy pattern shows unusual hybridization. Mai's expression sharpened with professional interest. Hybridization between power systems suggests faction crossing. Rare and typic. Ally prohibited under supernatural accords. Before they could prepare appropriate response, the approaching entity arrived, descending from above with dramatically unfurled wings that immediately distinguished it from conventional fallen angels. Where Rainer and her colleagues had manifested feathered wings of pure darkness, this being displayed wings composed of swirling energy patterns combining traditional light manipulation with what Issei's 6 eyes identified as cursed energy techniques. The figure itself presented as male, tall and imposing with aristocratic features framed by silver-white hair. His attire combined traditional fallen angel aesthetic with elements resembling Jujutsu sorcerer battle gear, practical reinforced clothing overlaid with ceremonial components suggesting ritual significance. Well, the newcomer observed with cultured amusement, landing gracefully several meters away. What an interesting gathering. Grimoire Devils, a 6 eyes user, and, my goodness. Is that a Zenin clan member operating outside sanctioned territories? How delightfully irregular. Mai had shifted to combat stance, her expression hardening into something beyond her usual professional neutrality. Erasal, she identified, the name carrying obvious recognition and hostility. Jujutsu Society has standing elimination orders regarding your experiments. So formal, Mai-chan, E-man, Erasal, replied with mocking familiarity. After all our productive collaborations with your family, the Zenin elders certainly appreciated my insights regarding curse manipulation protocols. His casual reference to apparent cooperation with Mai's family visibly affected her, a flicker of complicated emotion crossing her features before being ruthlessly suppressed. Unauthorized faction crossing remains prohibited. She stated flatly, your continued existence violates multiple supernatural accords. Erasal responded with theatrical disappointment. Always regulations and accords with your generation. So different from the ambitious vision your grandfather embraced. His attention shifted to Issei, eyes narrowing with obvious interest. But enough reminiscing. I've come to observe the convergence vessel everyone's suddenly so interested in. The vessel has a name, Issei responded, struggling to his feet despite lingering exhaustion. Something about this hybrid being trigger. Instinctive wariness beyond mere tactical concern, a sense of calculated malevolence operating toward objectives more complex than simple aggression. Indeed it does, Hyodo Issei, Erasal acknowledged, edged with a slight bow that somehow conveyed mockery rather than respect. Your sudden emergence has created quite the stir across usually segregated supernatural communities. A human simultaneously manifesting 6 eyes, a Longinus class sacred gear, and his expression sharpened with particular interest. Something else. Something old and wonderfully catastrophic, if I'm not mistaken. The precision of this assessment suggested advanced intelligence gathering beyond casual observation. Combined with his apparent knowledge of Mai's family and hybrid nature, Erasal represented something more concerning than typical supernatural threats, a being who deliberately crossed established boundaries while maintaining sophisticated awareness of multiple faction dynamics. What do you want? Rias demanded, stepping forward with the formal authority of her position. This territory falls under Grimoire protection. Your presence without prior notification violates established protocols. So many protocols. Erasal sighed dramatically. I merely wished to observe the convergence vessel personally. Professional curiosity, you understand. My particular research focuses on intersection points between supernatural power systems, places where supposedly distinct energies overlap and create interesting possibilities. The casual description carried ominous implications given his hybrid manifestation. Research suggesting deliberate attempts to combine fallen angel abilities with cursed energy techniques implied dangerous experimentation across faction boundaries. Your research has caused multiple dimensional instabilities, Mai stated coldly. The Kyoto incident resulted in 17 civilian casualties and required joint suppression efforts from 3 jujutsu families. Acceptable developmental costs, Erasal dismissed with disturbing casualness. Though I've refined the process considerably since then, the current methodology produces much more stable hybridization results. Throughout this exchange, Issei maintained 6 eyes observation of the hybrid being, noting distinctive energy patterns suggesting complex modifications to conventional fallen angel physiology. Most concerning, however, was the cursed energy component, not merely adjacent to the light-based power but fundamentally integrated, suggesting successful merger of supposedly incompatible supernatural systems. You're trying to collapse the barriers between supernatural factions, Issei realized, vocalizing the pattern his analysis revealed. Not just personally crossing boundaries, but systematically weakening the dimensional partitions that keep different supernatural ecosystems separated. Erasal's expression shifted from casual amusement to genuine interest, studying Issei with newfound appreciation. Impressive intuitive leap for someone with such limited exposure to supernatural cosmology. The 6 eyes truly do provide remarkable analytical capacity. He smiled thinly, though, Olaps carries unnecessarily apocalyptic connotations. I prefer convergence, or perhaps harmonization, the natural evolution of artificially segregated power systems. There's nothing natural about forced power integration, Mai countered, cursed energy gathering around her specialized tools. Separate supernatural ecosystems evolved independently for fundamental cosmic stability. Your interference threatens multiverse coherence. Quote, such dramatic accusations, Arazel laughed lightly. When the Zenin clan happily utilized my research for their own inherited technique modifications. His gaze shifted deliberately toward your own specialized curse manipulation bears my methodological fingerprints, doesn't it, my Chan? The accusation struck visibly, causing momentary hesitation in Mai's combat preparation. Capitalizing on this psychological advantage, Arazel returned his attention to Issei with disturbing intensity. You, however, represent something far more interesting than deliberate hybridization. He continued, natural convergence, 3 distinct power systems coexisting without engineered integration protocols. The universe itself experimenting with boundary dissolution through a single human vessel. His expression became almost reverential. Absolutely fascinating research opportunity. I'm not a research subject, Issei stated firmly, boosted gear materializing despite his depleted condition. And I'm not interested in helping destabilize supernatural boundaries. Such limited ambition, Arazel chided gently. When you could be the catalyst for evolutionary transcendence across multiple supernatural ecosystems. The living nexus point through which artificial divisions dissolve into harmonious integration. The grandiose vision carried disturbing echoes of apocalyptic rhetoric, suggesting objectives extending far beyond personal ambition into fundamental reality restructuring. Before Issei could formulate appropriate response, the dark fragment stirred within his consciousness. Reacting to Arazel's presence with unexpected intensity. Presumptuous lesser being, it hissed with cold disdain. Attempting to manipulate forces beyond comprehension while understanding nothing of true dominion. Convergence requires worthy vessel, not self-important experimenter playing with fragments of power. The fragment's assessment, while characteristically arrogant, highlighted something important. Arazel's apparent knowledge of supernatural boundary mechanics suggested he recognized what Issei's convergence of powers might potentially enable. The hybrid being wasn't merely observing out of academic curiosity but evaluating potential utility toward his own boundary dissolution objectives. Your interest is noted but unwelcome, Rias intervened diplomatically. Crimson energy gathering subtly around her hands. As territorial administrator, I must insist you depart Kuo immediately. Any research proposals regarding Issei Hyodo must proceed through appropriate channels with his explicit consent. Arazel regarded the devil heiress with amused tolerance. Such charming adherence to formalities. Very well, I'll respect territorial conventions, for now. His attention returned to Issei with unsettling focus. But we'll continue this fascinating discussion soon, Convergence Vessel. Your unique condition represents too valuable an evolutionary opportunity to ignore. With theatrical flourish, Arazel extended his hybrid wings to full span, the swirling patterns of integrated light and cursed energy creating visually disorienting effects. Until next time, he offered with mock politeness before launching skyward with exceptional speed, quickly disappearing beyond conventional perception range. In the tense silence following his departure, Mai's professional composure cracked slightly, genuine concern evident in her expression as she turned toward Issei. That entity represents significant escalation in threat assessment, she stated with uncharacteristic emotional undertone. Arazel's boundary dissolution research directly intersects with your convergence condition. You know him, Issei observed, catching the personal dimensions beneath her tactical evaluation. And he knows your family. He implied cooperation. Mai's expression tightened momentarily before she nodded once in reluctant confirmation. ICAL association between Zenin clan elders and various research entities. Not current policy. Her eyes met Issei's directly. Some traditionalist factions within clan hierarchies maintain questionable research partnerships. The careful phrasing suggested complex internal politics within Jujutsu society that mirrored similar factionalism Rias had described within devil hierarchies, progressive and traditional elements with fundamentally different approaches to supernatural boundaries and appropriate research methodologies. The immediate concern is security escalation, Rias interjected, redirecting focus to tactical necessities. If Arazel's research focuses on boundary dissolution and he's identified Issei as potentially relevant to those objectives, we face sophisticated targeting. Beyond conventional fallen angel or cursed spirit threats. Multi-faction coordination required, Sharon stated simply, her golden eyes still tracking the direction of Erasel's departure despite Hi's having moved beyond even her enhanced perception range. Agreed, Mai nodded, professional focus returning. I'll submit formal incident report requesting expanded authorization for cross-faction cooperative security protocols. As they discussed immediate security adjustments, Issei found himself contemplating the larger implications of Erasel's appearance. The hybrid being represented not Saint personal threat but manifestation of deliberate boundary violation, someone actively working to dissolve the separations between supernatural ecosystems that apparently maintained cosmic stability. Most concerning was the fragment's reaction, not fear or even tactical concern, but disdainful dismissal of Erasel as presumptuous lesser being, despite his obvious power and dangerous ambitions. The casual arrogance suggested the fragment originated from something that considered even hybrid fallen angels insignificant by comparison, a deeply unsettling perspective given what they'd already witnessed of Erasel's capabilities. We should return to secure location, Rias decided, observing Issei's still exhausted condition. Sona's peerage can complete site containment while we address new strategic requirements. With tactical efficiency, Akino established transportation circle back to the old schoolhouse, the group departing as local devil forces completed civilian memory modification and physical damage repair. Throughout the process, Issei noticed Mai maintaining closer proximity than her usual professional distance, her attention periodically returning to him with what appeared to be genuine concern rather than merely analytical interest. Advanced technique manifestation without proper foundation training carries significant risks, Mai explained later that afternoon. Having accompanied them back to the underground training facility, Six Eyes users historically followed structured development progression precisely to prevent energy system damage. They sat in a small meditation space adjacent to the main training arena, Issei having partially recovered through specialized restorative measures Rias had arranged. Mai had produced several scrolls from her previously mysterious bundle, ancient documentation regarding Six Eyes training protocols preserved through Jujutsu Society archives. The limitless works through mathematical visualization, she continued, unrolling a scroll containing complex diagrams illustrating energy flow patterns. By perceiving infinity between 2 points, you create spatial manipulation effects. However, maintaining such calculation strains normal human cognition beyond sustainable limits, which is why Six Eyes are necessary, Issei surmised, studying the intricate illustrations with newfound appreciation. They provide the perceptual precision needed to perform those calculations automatically rather than through conscious effort. Mai nodded in approval of his understanding. Precisely. Six Eyes don't merely see curse energy, they perceive mathematical relationships underlying reality itself. With proper training, calculations that would overwhelm conventional human cognition become instinctive. The explanation resonated with Issei's experiences during both cursed spirit encounters. His most effective technique applications had emerged not through deliberate calculation but intuitive understanding, seeing how reality could be manipulated and allowing that perception to guide his actions. The domain severance technique, however, Mai continued with more cautious tone, utilizes different operational principles entirely. While mathematically precise, it functions through division rather than infinity imposition, severing connections between dimensional layers rather than manipulating space within a single dimension. The distinction highlighted the fundamental difference between Six Eyes applications and the techniques provided by the fragment, related but distinct approaches to reality manipulation operating from fundamentally different philosophical frameworks. Six Eyes see and calculate, Mai summarized. The cutting technique divides and separates. Both powerful, but with different cosmological implications. Her expression became subtly troubled, particularly given Erasel's boundary dissolution objectives. The connection hadn't immediately occurred to Issei, but now seemed obvious. A being focused on merging supernatural boundaries would naturally take interest in someone who could potentially sever those same dimensional connections. Either capability could serve Erasel's purposes depending on application methodology. You think he wants to use me to cut through the barriers between supernatural factions, Issei realized. Or study how my abilities work to develop Hi's own version of dimensional manipulation. A reasonable hypothesis, Mai acknowledged. Though his specific methodological approach remains unclear. Throughout this technical discussion, Issei ticked something subtly shifting in Mai's demeanor, her customary professional distance giving way to more genuine engagement, particularly when discussing Six Eyes applications. The specialized Nold GE clearly represented more than academic information for her, it carried personal significance somehow. You mentioned traditional factions within your clan maintaining research partnerships with Erasal, Issei noted carefully. How does that connect to Six Eyes specifically? The question visibly touched sensitive territory, Mai's expression momentarily tensing before she formulated measured response. The Zenin clan historically specialized in inherited techniques, particularly visual abilities. Six Eyes represent the pinnacle of such techniques, appearing rarely even within specialized bloodlines. She hesitated before continuing more quietly. Some clan factions pursued alternative methods of replicating such abilities when natural inheritance proved insufficient. The careful raising suggested ethically questionable research, attempts to artificially develop or transfer inherited techniques rather than awaiting natural manifestation. Combined with Erasal's comments about collaboration, a concerning picture emerged of traditional clan elements willing to partner with boundary-crossing entities to enhance family techniques. And your specialized curse manipulation that Erasal mentioned, Issei prompted gently, sensing important context behind the hybrid being's taunting references. Mai's expression hardened momentarily before deliberately relaxing into something approaching vulnerability, a conscious choice to share information beyond professional necessity. Certain clan members, myself included, underwent modification procedures to enhance inherited technique potential. Procedure developers included external consultants with questionable methodological ethics. The admission carried obvious personal weight, suggesting Mai's connection to Erasal extent beyond abstract clan politics into direct experience with his experimental approaches. Her evident distaste for the hybrid being took on new significance, not just professional opposition to boundary violation but personal history with potentially non-consensual enhancement procedures. I'm sorry, Issei offered simply. That sounds like a difficult position to navigate. Something in his forward acknowledgement seemed to reach Mai more effectively than tactical discussion had, her carefully maintained professional demeanor softening slightly. Clan politics are complicated, she admitted, particularly for female members with moderate technique potential. Enhancement procedures were presented as opportunity rather than option. Before this unexpectedly personal conversation could develop further, Sharon appeared silently at the meditation room in trance, her expression carrying subtle urgency despite minimal changes to her neutral demeanor. Akano requests assistance, she stated simply. Energy fluctuations detected near northern ward boundary. The interruption returned Mai immediately to professional focus, scrolls efficiently returned to protective storage as she rose with practiced precision. Continuous manifestations suggest escalation pattern, she noted clinically. Consistent with fragment attraction hypothesis. Issei followed them through the trainee facility toward the main tactical planning room, where Rias and Akano stood before a large holographic display showing Kuo territory with various energy signatures highlighted in different colors. Several points along the northern perimeter glowed with warning indicators, fluctuating patterns suggesting unstable supernatural activity. Third manifestation detected within 24 hours, Akano reported as they entered. Different signature pattern from previous encounters. Neither conventional cursed spirit nor fallen angel energy, but something combining elements of both. Potential hybrid manifestation, Mai questioned, immediately moving to analyze the display data. Or boundary weakening effect similar to Kyoto incident. Unclear from current sensor data, Akano replied. Our energy signature shows concerning similarity to Erasal's unique pattern, suggesting possible connection to his research activities. Rias turned toward Issei with evident concern. Under normal circumstances, I would recommend you remain here while we investigate. 3 high-level engagements in 24 hours exceeds reasonable exposure for someone still developing control. Her expressee reflected genuine care beneath tactical assessment. However, if these manifestations specifically target you or the energies you contain, then keeping me separate just means fighting without the primary target present to help. Issei completed her thought process. I understand the risks, but sitting safely while others face danger because of me isn't acceptable. The straightforward statement carried no dramatic heroism. Simply practical acknowledgement of responsibility. Despite his limited combat experience, Issei had already demonstrated unique capabilities against supernatural Reeds specifically drawn to his convergent powers. Very well, Rias agreed after brief consideration. But with strict tactical parameters. You maintain secondary position, focusing on analysis and targeted technique application rather than direct engagement. Kiba and Sharon will establish primary protective cordon. I will provide technical guidance regarding Six Eyes applications, Mai added. Her tone suggesting this was non-negotiable, particularly if boundary phenomena manifest requiring specialized countermeasures. The tactical planning continued with impressive efficiency, Rias D. Demonstrating sophisticated command capabilities while integrating input from multiple specialists. Within minutes, they had established comprehensive engagement protocols accounting for various threat scenarios ranging from conventional cursed spirit manifestation to potential boundary distortion events similar to those Mai had referenced from Arazel's previous activities. As preparations concluded, Issei found Akeno approaching him directly while others gathered equipment for the impending investigation. Her characteristic subtle smile carried genuine concern beneath its surface composure. Your recovery seems impressively rapid, she observed, violet eyes studying him with perceptive attention. Though I suspect you're concealing continued strain from this morning's technique applications. The assessment was uncomfortably accurate. While the specialized restorative measures had addressed immediate exhaustion, Issei still felt persistent fatigue from the advanced techniques he'd employed against the cursed spirit's domain. His six eyes revealed his own energy pathways operating at roughly 60% optimal capacity despite external appearance of recovery. I'm functional enough, he replied, seeing little benefit in deception given her evident perception. And if these manifestations are occurring because of me, I need to be involved in addressing them. Admirable sentiment, Akeno acknowledged with gentle directness. Though martyrdom complexes rarely contribute to effective tactical outcomes, her expression softened further, showing genuine rather than performative concern. Your unique abilities are invaluable, but sustainable development requires acknowledging current limitations rather than consistently operating beyond capacity thresholds. The frank assessment contained no condescension or doubt regarding his capabilities, only practical recognition of developmental realities that Issei himself had begun to recognize through direct experience. Hing beyond established capacity repeatedly risked not just temporary exhaustion but potential long-term damage to still developing energy pathways. I'll focus on analysis and targeted applications, he promised sincerely. No unnecessary heroics or experimental techniques without proper supervision. Akeno's smile warmed with genuine appreciation of his maturity. Reasonable parameters for Psalm E1 carrying three distinct supernatural power systems that shouldn't theoretically coexist. Her tone lightened slightly despite the serious circumstances. Though I must admit, watching you integrate these abilities creates rather fascinating observational data. The subtle shift from tactical concern to personal interest wasn't lost on Issei, who found himself momentarily disconcerted by the unexpected attention. Unlike his previous awkward interactions with girls his age, this conversation carried natural rhythm without artificial performance on either side, genuine communication between individuals with shared concerns and developing mutual respect. If everyone's prepared, Rias called from near the transportation circle, interrupting further conversation. Akeno has established connection coordinates near the disturbance perimeter. The group assembled with practiced efficiency, each member carrying specialized equipment suited to their tactical role. As crimson light enveloped them for transportation to the northern ward boundary, Issei found himself flanked by Mai and Akeno, the Jujutsu Sorcerer and Devil Queen positioned for optimal protective coverage while maintaining proximity for technical guidance. Reality reasserted itself at the edge of a densely forested area marking Kuo's northern boundary, where urban development gave way to more natural landscape. Even without enhanced perception, the wrongness of the immediate environment registered immediately, vegetation displaying unnatural growth patterns, animal life conspicuously absent, and subtle atmospheric distortion creating visual wavering similar to extreme heat effects. Activating Six Eyes for preliminary analysis, Issei immediately identified the source of environmental disruption, a localized weakening in dimensional stability approximately 200 meters ahead, where normal space appeared to overlap with something carrying fundamentally different physical properties. Unlike conventional domain techniques employed by cursed spirits, this phenomenon showed deliberate structural reinforcement suggesting intentional engineering rather than natural manifestation. Artificial boundary disruption, he reported immediately. Similar mathematical pattern to Erasel's hybrid wing manifestation but significantly larger scale. Appears to be one-way penetration rather than full dissolution, so mething coming through rather than complete merger. Mai immediately moved forward to establish direct observation position, her own cursed energy techniques revealing aspects of the phenomenon Issei's untrained six eyes might miss despite their superior base functionality. Controlled breach protocol, she confirmed after brief analysis. Dimensional anchor points established with stabilization matrix preventing cascade failure. Professional methodology consistent with Erasel's known techniques. Purpose appears to be controlled manifestation pathway, Akano added, lightning gathering sut. Li around her fingers as she analyzed the energy patterns. Creating stable transition corridor between dimensional boundaries. Rias processed this tactical information with impressive speed, immediately adjusting their approach strategy. Containment priority rather than direct confrontation, she decided. Kiba, Sharon, establish perimeter 50 meters back from breach point. Akano, prepare rear protocols for dimensional reinforcement if collapse threatens. I can establish counter anchors using limitless, Issei suggested, analyzing the breach structure with increasing clarity as his six eyes adapted to the unusual phenomena. Create infinity points at key structural nodes to prevent further expansion. Mai nodded in approval of this approach. Controlled application at Mathimat. ICAL junction points rather than direct confrontation. Appropriate utilization of six eyes precision capabilities. With tactical roles established, the group moved toward optimal positioning around the dimensional breach. As Issei prepared to implement counter-anchor techniques, however, the breach suddenly pulsed with increased energy, expansion accelerating beyond predicted parameters. Manifestation imminent, Mai warned. Cursed tools ready in practiced grip. Energy signature indicates multiple entities transitioning simultaneously. The warning proved immediately accurate as the Briac H expanded to approximately 3 meters diameter, solidifying into what appeared to be a stable portal between dimensional boundaries. Through this opening emerged 3 distinct entities, humanoid in basic configuration but displaying obvious hybrid characteristics combining fallen angel and cursed spirit features in disturbing integration. Unlike Erasel's relatively natural-appearing manifestation, these beings showed clear signs of experimental modification, anatomical asymmetry, partially materialized wings composed of writhing cursed energy, and facial features displaying unsettling movement. Ent patterns suggesting incomplete stabilization. Most concerning, each hybrid entity wore specialized equipment resembling scientific instrumentation rather than conventional weapons, suggesting Res. Arch mission parameters rather than simple aggression. Fascinating subjects, announced a familiar cultured voice as Erasel himself emerged through the portal behind his hybrid creations. Wonderful. Developmental progress since our earlier conversation. The convergence vessel with its protective entourage, right on schedule. His casual reference to schedule confirmed what tactical analysis already suggested. The dimensional breach represented deliberate attempt to draw their attention rather than coincidental manifestation. The entire scenario had been engineered specifically to bring Issei to this location under predictable circumstances. What do you want, Erasel? Rias demanded, crimson destruction energy gathering visibly around her hands despite her diplomatic tone. This territorial violation exceeds acceptable parameters even under research exemptions. Always so formal, Grimori-san, Erasel sighed dramatically. When we're participating in such historically significant events together. His attention shifted to Issei with disturbing intensity. I merely wished to conduct preliminary field assessment regarding convergence stability under controlled observation conditions. The clinical description failed to mask obvious hostile intent as the hybrid entities moved into obvious containment formation, positioning to surround their group while activating what Issei's six eyes identified as specialized energy dampening equipment designed to suppress conventional supernatural abilities. You're not conducting any assessments, Issei stated firmly, boosted gear mat aerializing around his left arm as he prepared counter-anchor positioning. And you're definitely not creating a stable dimensional breach in populated territory. Such limited perspective, Issei chided gently. When you yourself represent the ultimate boundary dissolution experiment, three distinct supernatural power systems coexisting in single human vessel. Your very existence challenges the artificial separation paradigm supernatural factions have maintained for millennia. This philosophical framing of boundary dissolution as liberation rather than violation suggested sophisticated-eyed. A logical foundation beneath Issei's experimental approaches, not mere power hunger but structured cosmological vision regarding supernatural ecosystem integration. Most concerning was the potential appeal of such framework to individuals feeling constrained by traditional faction boundaries. If boundaries were meant to dissolve, they would do so naturally, Mai countered, her professional detach. Meant carrying unexpected philosophical weight. Artificial acceleration of cosmic processes typically creates catastrophic instability rather than harmonious integration. The cautious perspective of limited minds, Issei dismissed. When true visionaries recognize evolution requires catalytic intervention. His expression hardened slightly as he gestured toward his hybrid creations. Now then, preliminary assessment protocols. Please. Minimal damage to the convergence vessel, but feel free to neutralize the protective entourage if they interfere excessively. The hybrid entities moved with disturbing coordination, activating specialized equipment that immediately generated localized interference fields affecting conventional energy manipulation. Hiba's attempt to materialize additional swords faltered momentarily, while Rias's destruction energy visibly flickered against unexpected resistance. Energy dampening field effective against devil abilities, Sharon reported with characteristic efficiency. Immediately shifting to pure physical techniques rather than supernaturally enhanced approaches. Adapting engagement parameters. Issei activated Six Eyes to analyze the dampening technology, immediately identifying its operational principles. Specialized cursed techniques modified to disrupt specific supernatural energy frequencies commonly utilized by devil and fallen angel abilities. Interestingly, the equipment showed less effectiveness against pure cursed energy techniques, suggesting deliberate calibration toward biblical faction powers rather than jujutsu methodologies. He called, sharing tactical analysis. Their dampening field shows reduced effectiveness against cursed techniques. Hybrid integration prioritized biblical energy suppression. The UTSU sorcerer immediately capitalized on this information, her specialized nails finding gaps in the dampening coverage to establish resonance points around the nearest hybrid entity. With precise hammer strike, she activated cascading disruption that momentarily destabilized its partially manifested cursed energy components. Simultaneously, Sharon engaged the second hybrid with impressive physical prowess. Her compact form delivering devastating impact force that compensated for supernaturally enhanced abilities affected by the dampening field. Hiba adapted with similar tactical flexibility, shifting from power-intensive manifested weapons to conventional bladed implements carried as backup precisely for such contingencies. As his allies engaged the hybrid entities directly, Issei said on the dimensional breach itself, the source of both immediate threats and longer-term stability concerns. Through Six Eyes analysis, he identified the mathematical anchor points maintaining portal stability, calculating precise counter-anchor positions where infinity imposition would most effectively neutralize the unnatural connection between dimensional boundaries. Boost. Announced the SAW. Cred gear as Issei channeled doubled energy directly into Six Eyes' precision, enhancing his perception of spatial relationships to levels that revealed previously invisible aspects of the breach construction. What initially appeared as simple portal now displayed complex underlying structure, deliberate engineering designed not merely for temporary manifestation but potential permanent boundary weakening. Issei isn't just creating temporary passage, he realized, sharing urgent analysis with allies. The breach architecture includes progressive expansion protocols. Once stabilized, it's designed to gradually increase dimensional overlap beyond initial parameters. Consistent with previous methodologies, Mai confirmed grimly, momentarily disengaging from combat to analyze the breach structure herself. Kyoto Incident employed similar progressive boundary dissolution techniques. This confirmation elevated threat assessment from immediate tactical concern to potential regional catastrophe. If allowed to proceed according to design parameters, such boundary weakening could eventually affect civilian populations well beyond the current forested perimeter. Counter-anchor positions identified, Issei announced. Extending both hands toward the breach. Implementing limitless boundary reinforcement. Channeling boosted gear energy through Six Eyes precision, Issei imposed in Phi. Nitty at mathematically calculated nodes surrounding the dimensional breach. Unlike his previous applications focused on finite spaces, this technique required simultaneous manipulation of multiple INF. Entity points specifically calibrated to counteract the breach's expansion vectors, a level of complexity far beyond what he had previously attempted. Immediately, he felt the tremendous strain of maintaining such sophisticated technique without proper foundation training. Despite boosted gear amplification, the mathematical complexity threatened to overwhelm his still developing control capabilities, creating dangerous feedback loops within his energy pathways. Technique instability detected, Mai warned, moving to supporting position beside him. Structural complexity exceeding current capability parameters. Before Issei could adjust his approach, Arazel intervened directly, moving with disturbing speed to position himself between Issei and the dimensional breach, hybrid wings flaring with integrated light and cursed energy. Fascinating application attempt, the hybrid being observed with genuine academic interest. But premature given your developmental stage. Six Eyes require years of structured training before attempting multi-point infinity manipulation across dimensional boundaries. With casual precision, Arazel extended his hand toward Issei's partially established counter-anchors. Cursed energy flowing in controlled patterns that systematically disrupted the mathematical relationships maintaining the infinity points. One by one, the carefully positioned NCHORS destabilized under his targeted interference. You see, Hyodo-kun, Arazel continued conversationally despite the ongoing combat surrounding them, effective boundary manipulation requires intimate understanding of interdimensional mathematics beyond intuitive application. The limitless provides magnificent tools, but without comprehensive cosmological context, you're merely pressing buttons on machinery beyond your comprehension. The condescending assessment carried disturbing technical accuracy despite its source. Issei's counter-anchor attempt, while conceptually sound, lacked the refined precision necessary for sustained effectiveness against deliberately engineered boundary manipulation. Six Eyes provided perfect perception, but translating that perception into precise technique application still required extensive training his accelerated awakening had bypassed. As the last counter-anchor collapsed under Arazel's systematic disruption, Issei felt mounting frustratio. Combined with genuine concern regarding the expanding dimensional breach. Without effective countermeasures, the progressive boundary dissolution would continue according to design parameters, potentially affecting civilian populations once expansion reached urban areas. His understanding is technically accurate but philosophically flawed. Observed the dark fragment, stirring from its usual dormancy with unexpected analytical clarity. Boundaries require neither dissolution nor reinforcement, but domain assertion. Where competing realities intersect, dominance establishes natural order. The fragment's perspective offered alternative approach distinct from both Arazel's integration philosophy and conventional boundary reinforcement methodologies. Rather than attempting to close he breach directly or counter its mathematical expansion vectors, perhaps asserting domain precedence could establish hierarchical relationship between intersecting dimensional properties. Domain assertion, Issei murmured. The concept resonating with techniques glimpsed during his earlier confrontation with the cursed spirit's domain expansion. Not counteracting the breach but establishing priority hierarchy between dimensional properties. Arazel's expression shifted from condescending amusement to genuine curiosity. Interesting theoretical approach, he acknowledged. Though domain assertion typically requires established territorial claim within at least one intersecting dimensional plane. Unless the assertion comes from a third-party authority with dominance over both, Issei countered. The concept emerging from that strange intuitive understanding provided by the fragment's perspective. A domain that encompasses multiple realities rather than existing within any single dimensional framework. As this conceptual approach solidified in his understanding, Issei felt the dark fragment's energy responding, not simply stirring but actively flowing into his conscious awareness. Providing technical knowledge regarding domain mechanics beyond anything discussed in his limited training sessions. Domain expansion. Shrine of Absolute Severance, asterisk, the fragment whispered, He technique name emerging with crystalline clarity. Where competing realities seek dominance, establish absolute authority through division mastery. The offered technique carried obvious risks, not merely energy expenditure beyond current capacity but potential increased influence from the still unidentified fragment itself. Yet facing progressive dimensional instability with conventional techniques proving insufficient, alternative approaches became necessary despite accompanying hazards. Akeno, Issei called, making rapid tactical decision. I need amplification support for specialized technique application. Direct lightning into boosted gear for conversion pathway. The Devil Queen immediately understood the request, disengaging from peripheral combat to establish supporting position. With practiced precision, she channeled controlled lightning directly into the emerald jewel of Issei's manifested sacred gear, creating energy conversion circuit that significantly enhanced his available power reserves. Boost. The sacred gear announced again, but this time with unusual harmonic resonance as Akeno's lightning integrated with the doubling effect, creating exponential rather than merely arithmetic enhancement. With this substantially amplified energy reserve, Issei extended both hands toward the dimensional breach, but rather than attempting counter anchors at specific mathematical nodes, he now focused on establishing comprehensive domain encompassing the entire affected area. Drawing upon the fragment's provided knowledge regarding domain mechanics, he visualized conceptual space where his authority superseded conventional dimensional properties. Domain expansion, he announced, feeling the technique manifest with startling power. Shrine of Absolute Severance. Reality rippled outward from his position, not as conventional domain establishing bounded field with altered physics, but as hierarchical assertion imposing authority over intersecting dimensional properties. Within this conceptual space, the fragment's division mastery created absolute priority system, establishing which dimensional characteristics maintained precedence where boundaries overlapped. The effect manifested visibly as geometric patterns flowing through the air surrounding the dimensional breach, mathematical relationships rearranging themselves according to the domain's assertion principles. Where Erasel's portal had created progressive boundary dissolution, Issei's domain now imposed structured hierarchy, allowing controlled interaction while preventing unconstrained integration. Erasel's expression shifted from curiosity to genuine surprise as his carefully engineered breach mechanics encountered unexpected resistance from this novel countermeasure. Fascinating technique application, he acknowledged with professional appreciation despite tactical setback. Domain assertion through division mastery rather than conventional bounded field establishment. The theoretical implications are quite remarkable. Despite this academic appreciation, Erasel immediately attempted countermeasures, channeling his hybrid energy into specialized disruptive patterns designed to destabilize domain integrity. His technical knowledge proved impressive, targeting specific vulnerabilities in Issei's hastily established technique with precision suggesting extensive experience countering domain-based abilities. Your domain assertion shows impressive intuitive structure, the hybrid being noted while methodically attacking its foundational parameters, but lacks proper reinforcement against targeted disruption. Domain techniques require extensive preparation to maintain stability under sophisticated counterattack. The assessment proved unfortunately accurate as Issei felt his domain beginning to fluctuate under Erasel's systematic assault. Despite amplified energy reserves and the fragment's provided knowledge, his limited experience with domain mechanics left significant vulnerabilities that Erasel exploited with practiced efficiency. As the domain began destabilizing, Issei felt mounting frustration combined with growing exhaustion. 3 high-level engagements within 24 hours had depleted his still-developing energy pathways beyond sustainable limits, leaving him struggling to maintain technique integrity against experienced opposition. At this critical moment, Akeno moved closer, her hand touching his shoulder in direct physical contact rather than merely providing ranged energy support. Channel through connection, she instructed quietly. Direct pathway rather than atmospheric transfer. Understanding immediately, Issei established energy circuit directly between them, allowing Akeno's power to flow without conversion loss through physical connection. The effect was immediate and dramatic. His flagging domain suddenly reinforced with clean, precisely controlled lightning energy that flowed according to his directed intent. Rather than requiring independent manipulation. Perfect synchronization, Mai observed from nearby, professional assessment momentarily overtaken by genuine amazement. Devil energy converting dire. CTLY to technique application without compatibility issues. The observation highlighted something remarkable that Issei himself had only subconsciously recognized, where conventional supernatural RGIES typically maintained strict separation requiring specialized conversion protocols. His convergent nature allowed direct integration of Akino's devil power into technique application without compatibility barriers. This unexpected synergy created opportunity for counteroffensive rather than merely defensive stabilization. With renewed energy flowing through direct connection, Issei refined his domain assertion, focusing specifically on reversing the dimensional breaches expansion protocols rather than simply containing current parameters. Boundary restoration through division mastery, he murmured. The concept emerging from integrated understanding of both Six Eyes' spatial perception and the fragment's division techniques. Severance of artificial connections while maintaining natural separation points. The refined approach targeted precisely what Erasal had engineered, the artificial integration points where dimensional boundaries had been deliberately weakened to enable progressive dissolution. By applying division mastery to these specific connection points rather than the entire breach structure, Issei could potentially reverse the expansion protocol without requiring comprehensive domain maintenance. Erasal recognized the strategic adjustment immediately, his expression shifting from academic appreciation to genuine concern. Clever adaptation, he acknowledged. Hybrid wings flaring as he prepared more aggressive countermeasures. Though technically sophisticated for someone with such limited formal training. Before he could implement these countermeasures, however, Mai intervened directly, specialized nails striking key points surrounding Erasal's position while her cursed energy established resonance patterns specifically calibrated to disrupt hybrid energy manifestation. Technical sophistication benefits from appropriate support personnel, she stated with cold precision, hammer striking primary resonance nail with calculated force. The resulting energy cascade temporarily disrupted Erasal's hybrid wing manifestation, creating critical opening in his defensive capabilities. Simultaneously, Chiron and Kiba completed neutralization of the remaining hybrid entities, converging on Erasal's position with coordinated movement suggesting extensively practiced combination techniques. Rias maintained perimeter containment, destruction energy ray, die to intercept potential reinforcements through the partially stabilized breach. Recognizing deteriorating tactical situation, Erasal made rapid strategic assessment. Preliminary field evaluation provides sufficient initial data, he announced with remarkable composure despite obvious setback. Full assessment protocols deferred pending equipment refinement and methodology adjustment. With practiced efficiency, he activated what appeared to be emergency extraction protocol, specialized cursed technique creating localized spatial distortion distinct from the main dimensional breach. Before the assembled opposition could prevent departure, he stepped into this secondary portal, offering final parting observation. Your convergent abilities show remarkable development potential, Hyodo-kun. Our research collaboration will continue under more controlled parameters in future engagement scenarios. With that ominous promise, he vanished completely, the extraction portal collapsing behind him with mathematical precision that prevented pursuit. His departure created opportunity to address the primary dimensional breach without direct opposition, allowing Issei to fully implement Nadari restoration through division mastery. Maintaining energy connection with Akino, Issei focused entirely on the artificial integration points Erasal had engineered within the breach structure. Surgical precision guided by Six Eyes perception, he applied the fragment's division techniques to sever these connection points sequentially, progressively reversing the expansion protocol until breach began natural contraction toward baseline dimensional separation. Breach stability decreasing according to natural parameters, Mai confirmed, monitoring the dissolution process with specialized analytical techniques. Artificial integration points successfully neutralized. As the dimensional breach collapsed toward complete dissolution, Issei felt the tremendous accumulated strain multiple high-level technique applications finally overwhelm his compensation mechanisms. Despite Akino's continued energy support, his system had reached absolute capacity limitations, energy path. AYS approaching dangerous overload thresholds. Technique completion imminent, he managed through increasing exhaustion. Final division application required at core integration node. With remaining focused will, Issei channeled final precision division through the nearly collapsed breach, severing the last artificial connection point, maintaining dimensional overlap. The effect rippled outward. As natural boundary integrity reasserted itself, dimensional properties returning to proper separation without further intervention requirements. As the breach disappeared completely, Issei felt consciousness beginning to fade. Accumulated strain finally exceeding sustainable limits despite multiple support measures. The last sensation before darkness claimed him was Akino's supportive arm preventing complete collapse. Her voice carrying concern beneath characteristic composure. "Impressive performance," she murmured as his awareness faded. "Though we really must discuss appropriate energy management protocols before your next reality-altering heroics." The gentle teasing carried genuine care beneath its surface lightness, concern from someone who recognized both his remarkable capability ties and the very real dangers of exceeding developmental limitations. As consciousness slipped away entirely, Issei found himself surprisingly comforted by that balanced perspective, appreciation without unrealistic expectations, concern without stifling protectiveness. Such balance, he realized with final fading thought, represented exactly what he needed while navigating the unprecedented convergence of powers that had transformed his existence so completely in mere days. Chapter 3 End.